Love bombing is the weaponization of affection, a storm of admiration, attention, and validation designed not to love you, but to own you. It begins like a dream, constant compliments, endless messages, lavish gestures, and promises of forever that arrive far too soon. The manipulator showers you with intensity, so overwhelming it feels like destiny. But beneath the flood of affection lies a chilling calculation to make you addicted to their approval. At first, it feels intoxicating. Every text feels like proof that you are finally seen, finally chosen. They mirror your values, exaggerate compatibility, and make you feel like the center of their universe. But what they're really doing is conditioning your nervous system to equate their attention with safety, worth, and love. And when that attention suddenly disappears, your body panics. You crave the rush again, and that's exactly what keeps you trapped. Love bombing isn't love. It's a setup. It's the creation of an emotional high so powerful that withdrawal feels unbearable. Once they've secured your trust, the mask slips. Affection turns to criticism, warmth to coldness, and you're left confused, wondering what you did wrong. You chase the version of them that never existed, hoping the love will come back if you just behave better. The cruel genius of love bombing is how it rewires you to self-destruct. It convinces you that intensity equals intimacy, that chaos is passion, and that suffering is proof of devotion. It's not a romance, it's psychological possession disguised as love. Fake reviews, astroturfing. Fake reviews and astroturfing are the digital mass of deception, the creation of artificial voices to mimic public approval, manufacturing trust where none exists. It's manipulation disguised as community. The tactic preys on the human instinct to follow the crowd, to find safety in numbers, and to assume that widespread praise must mean truth. What you're really seeing isn't consensus, it's choreography. Astroturfing gets its name from fake grass, an imitation of authenticity. Corporations, influencers, and political operatives use it to flood the public sphere with glowing testimonials, falsified comments, and orchestrated endorsements. The illusion works because people believe social proof equals credibility. 1,000 satisfied customers can drown out a single genuine voice of dissent, burying reality under the noise of fabrication. The emotional manipulation is surgical. When you see hundreds of people agreeing, your skepticism weakens. You want to believe you've made the right choice, joined the right side, bought the right product. And in that moment, the lie becomes self-sustaining, each fake echo reinforcing the next until truth looks like the minority opinion. Fake reviews don't just sell products, they sell legitimacy. They rewrite reputation, rewrite perception, rewrite history. And the damage isn't just external, it corrodes trust itself. Once you realize the voices cheering in unison were never real, you begin to question everything, even the genuine. That's the true cost of astroturfing. It doesn't just manipulate what you believe, it poisons how you believe. It replaces human connection with simulation, leaving you surrounded by applause that was never meant for you at all. Doctored media / deepfake. Doctored media and deepfakes are the new face of deception. Digital illusions crafted to blur the line between truth and fabrication. They are psychological warfare disguised as evidence, exploiting the human tendency to believe what we see. A manipulated image, a forged recording, a face saying words it never spoke. Each one weaponizes technology to hijack trust itself. The result is chaos. Reality becomes negotiable, and doubt becomes a permanent companion. The danger isn't just in the lie, it's in the precision. Deepfakes mimic tone, gestures, and emotion so flawlessly that even experts hesitate. When a manipulated video circulates, it doesn't just fool the eyes, it infects the mind. People share it, react to it, rage over it, and by the time the truth emerges, the emotional damage is already done. The correction never travels as fast as the lie. Manipulators use this power to destroy reputations, rewrite history, or control narratives. A fake confession, a falsified scandal, a staged proof, each is crafted to spark outrage, fear, or allegiance. And in a world that rewards speed over accuracy, people fall into the trap willingly, mistaking realism for reality. But the deepest manipulation happens internally. When you can no longer trust what you see or hear, skepticism turns to paralysis. Every truth becomes suspect, every source contaminated. That's the real victory for those who use doctored media and deepfakes, not merely deceiving you once, but teaching you to doubt forever. When belief itself becomes fragile, manipulation no longer needs to convince, it only needs to confuse. Manufactured consensus. Manufactured consensus is the illusion of agreement, a psychological mirage where the manipulator makes you believe everyone thinks this way, even when no one really does. It preys on the deep human need to belong, to align with the tribe, to avoid standing out as the lone dissenter. The tactic doesn't persuade through logic, it persuades through pressure. When it feels like the majority has already decided, resistance feels like rebellion. This manipulation is everywhere: rigged polls, paid endorsements, fake reviews, and orchestrated applause. It's the curated comments section filled with identical praise, the company meeting where silence is mistaken for agreement, the political message that declares, "The people have spoken." The strategy is simple: make the lie loud enough and the truth starts to sound uncertain. Humans are wired to mirror social norms. When the crowd nods, we nod. When the crowd cheers, we cheer. Manipulators exploit this reflex to rewrite reality, using repetition, selective visibility, and fabricated data to simulate a collective voice. The more isolated a target feels, the more powerful this illusion becomes. If everyone believes it, the mind whispers, maybe I'm the one who's wrong. Manufactured consensus thrives on fear. Fear of exclusion, of embarrassment, of being the outsider who doesn't get it. It traps you in a social echo chamber where dissent feels dangerous and conformity feels safe. The tragedy is that once the illusion takes hold, it no longer needs to be maintained. The crowd begins to police itself, enforcing beliefs that never truly belonged to it in the first place. Guilt tripping. Guilt tripping is emotional manipulation disguised as moral reasoning, a weaponized appeal to your conscience designed to make you feel responsible for someone else's pain, disappointment, or failure. It thrives on empathy, twisting compassion into compliance. The manipulator doesn't need to yell or demand, they simply sigh, withdraw affection, or remind you how much they've done for you. And just like that, you're caught in an invisible web of obligation. At its core, guilt tripping exploits your desire to be good. It whispers, if you really cared, you'd do this for me. It frames love, loyalty, and decency as debts you must repay, even when you've done nothing wrong. The guilt is not earned, it's imposed. And because it targets your moral compass, it bypasses logic entirely. You start apologizing for things you didn't do, agreeing to things you don't want, and carrying emotions that don't belong to you. This technique thrives in relationships where emotional boundaries are blurred. A parent might say, after all I've sacrificed, this is how you treat me? A partner might murmur, I guess I just care more than you do. Each phrase slices into your sense of worth, suggesting that you're heartless for setting limits. What makes guilt tripping so devastating is how it rewrites your internal narrative. You begin to confuse kindness with surrender, responsibility with guilt, and over time, you don't need the manipulator to enforce it. You start policing yourself, offering endless apologies to keep the peace that never truly exists. Playing the victim is one of the most insidious forms of emotional manipulation, a calculated performance of helplessness designed to control through guilt, sympathy, and confusion. It flips morality upside down, turning wrongdoing into martyrdom and responsibility into persecution. The manipulator crafts a story where they are always misunderstood, mistreated, or betrayed while quietly rewriting reality to paint you as the villain. At its core, this tactic weaponizes empathy. Most people instinctively want to help, to comfort, to fix what's broken. The manipulator knows this. They drip-feed tales of suffering, exaggerate injustices, or fabricate emotional wounds to pull you closer. Every tear, every sigh, every trembling word is a hook. The moment you start feeling sorry for them, they gain control. The brilliance of this act is how it deflects accountability. When confronted, they crumble. I can't believe you'd attack me after everything I've been through. The focus shifts from their actions to your reaction. You start apologizing for hurting them while they quietly evade the truth. Over time, you learn that upsetting them equals cruelty, and pleasing them equals peace. It's emotional blackmail disguised as vulnerability. This manipulation is especially dangerous because it preys on compassion, twisting kindness into submission. You begin to walk on eggshells, terrified of being cast as the heartless one, and the more you give, the smaller you become, while they stand safely behind the armor of their own pain. Playing the victim isn't about seeking comfort, it's about control through sympathy, and it leaves you questioning whether your empathy has become your weakness. Reciprocity pressure is one of the most subtle yet emotionally binding forms of manipulation, a technique that turns human kindness into a silent debt. At its core, it operates on the ancient psychological rule that when someone gives us something, we feel compelled to return the favor. This instinct runs so deep that even a small, unwanted gesture can make us feel obligated to repay it, often in ways that far exceed the original act. From childhood, we are taught that good people reciprocate. So when someone buys us coffee, offers unexpected help, or showers us with generosity, our subconscious instantly starts calculating what we owe them. Manipulators know this. They use acts of goodwill not to connect, but to corner. By offering a gift, attention, or a seemingly selfless favor, they plant a seed of psychological discomfort, one that grows until you feel guilty for not giving back. The brilliance of reciprocity pressure is how invisible it feels. You think you're acting freely, but the truth is, your mind has been gently shackled by social expectation. Salespeople hand out free samples, knowing you'll feel bad leaving empty-handed. A colleague helps you once, then expects silence when they cross a line. A friend gives emotional support, only to demand loyalty when they're wrong. What makes reciprocity pressure so powerful is not the gift itself, but the emotional imbalance it creates. It turns fairness into a weapon, twisting your integrity against you. The moment you accept the favor, the hook is already in. Social proof bluff. The social proof bluff is a masterstroke of psychological manipulation, an illusion of popularity designed to make you doubt your own judgment. It exploits one of the deepest human instincts, the need to belong. When we see others approving, buying, or supporting something, our brains interpret it as validation, as if the collective can't possibly be wrong. This is how the bluff works. It manufactures the illusion of consensus, then hides behind it. Marketers, influencers, and manipulators use this tactic to create a false sense of credibility. Fake testimonials, inflated follower counts, or claims like everyone's doing it are meant to trigger that primal fear of being left out or left behind. The pressure isn't overt, it's psychological. When we think others have already decided, our critical thinking starts to dissolve. We stop asking questions and start conforming. It's terrifyingly effective because humans are social animals wired for survival through belonging. In ancient tribes, standing apart could mean danger or exile. Today, the same emotional circuitry fires when we see a crowd cheering or a post flooded with likes. We assume safety in numbers, and manipulators exploit that reflex ruthlessly. The social proof bluff feeds on your insecurities, whispering that resistance makes you foolish or isolated. You begin to wonder, am I the only one who doesn't see it? That's the trap. The power of this tactic lies not in what's real, but in what appears real. And once you start doubting your perception in favor of the crowd, the manipulator no longer needs to convince you, you'll convince yourself. False scarcity. False scarcity is the art of manufacturing urgency, a calculated illusion that something is running out, even when it isn't. It hijacks one of the most primal fears in the human psyche, the fear of loss. When people believe an opportunity, product, or privilege is slipping away, reason gives way to panic. The mind narrows, the heartbeat quickens, and suddenly, the decision you would normally question becomes a desperate grab for survival. Manipulators thrive on this emotional chaos. They whisper, "Only two left," "Offer ends tonight," or "Limited seats available," knowing that scarcity doesn't just increase desire, it kills hesitation. It's not about the object itself, but the imagined absence of it. The more fleeting something appears, the more precious it feels, and in that moment, logic becomes irrelevant. False scarcity preys on the illusion of exclusivity. It makes you feel chosen, special, part of a privileged few, until you realize the offer was never limited, the deal never urgent, and the clock was just a weapon designed to rush your consent. The tragedy is that it doesn't only manipulate wallets, it manipulates emotions. It convinces you to chase people who withhold attention, to compete for validation, to cling tighter when someone threatens to leave. This tactic feeds on anxiety, the quiet terror that if you don't act now, you'll lose forever. But what's really being stolen is your calm, your clarity, your ability to choose freely. False scarcity turns patience into punishment and turns the illusion of time into the perfect leash. Authority bluff. The authority bluff is a psychological sleight of hand, a performance of power designed to make you surrender your judgment before you even realize it. It works by cloaking manipulation in the illusion of expertise, status, or legitimacy. The voice sounds confident, the attire looks official, the tone carries certainty, and that's all it takes. Humans are conditioned to obey perceived authority, even when it's undeserved. This instinct runs deep. From childhood, we're taught to listen to teachers, doctors, leaders, people who know better. Manipulators exploit this reflex by adopting the appearance of authority, not its substance. They drop titles, name associations, or jargon to establish instant credibility. The moment you believe they have superior knowledge or power, your defenses soften. You stop questioning, you defer, you obey. It's not the uniform degree or tone that compels us, it's what those symbols represent: safety, order, certainty. The authority bluff hijacks that craving for structure, for someone to lead when the world feels uncertain. And once you hand over that trust, the manipulator doesn't need to argue. They simply declare. You'll see it everywhere, in false experts selling certainty, in domineering bosses hiding insecurity behind confidence, in social figures demanding obedience with borrowed prestige. The bluff thrives in ambiguity. When you can't easily verify who truly holds power, the danger lies in how quietly it works. The more confident the delivery, the less you question the content. The bluff doesn't demand your trust, it assumes it. And by the time you realize the authority was hollow, your consent has already been signed under the weight of their confidence. Data-targeted persuasion. Data-targeted persuasion is manipulation with a digital smile, a silent invasion of your mind disguised as personalization. It's the art of using your own data against you, predicting what you'll feel before you even know it yourself. Every click, scroll, and pause you make online becomes a breadcrumb in the map of your psychology. And behind that glowing screen, algorithms are watching, calculating what message, image, or tone will make you say yes. This isn't random advertising, it's emotional engineering. Data-driven persuasion exploits the patterns in your fears, desires, and insecurities. It learns when you're most vulnerable, late at night, after heartbreak, during stress, and feeds you the perfect nudge at the perfect moment. The ad that feels coincidentally relevant, the politician who just gets you, the influencer who feels real. None of it is chance, it's strategy. The danger isn't that the message is false, it's that it feels true. The data builds a mirror version of you, your digital twin, then uses that reflection to sell, convince, or control. The manipulator doesn't need to shout. They whisper directly to your subconscious, shaping what you think is your own opinion. This technique turns freedom of choice into an illusion. You believe you're deciding, but every decision was already predicted, every emotion rehearsed. The scariest part? It doesn't break your will, it bends it. Data-targeted persuasion is the invisible hand that steers humanity, not through force, but through precision, making control look like convenience and manipulation feel like destiny. Isolation tactics. Isolation tactics are psychological warfare, disguised as care, loyalty, or necessity. They work by quietly cutting a person off from their support system, friends, family, colleagues, until the manipulator becomes the only voice that matters. It doesn't happen overnight. It starts with subtle suggestions. They don't really understand you. You don't need them anymore. It's just us against the world. Slowly, your circle shrinks, your independence fades, and your world begins to orbit entirely around them. The genius of isolation is that it doesn't always look like control. It can masquerade as protection, intimacy, or even love. A partner says they just want more time together. A boss discourages outside opinions to keep things focused. A friend criticizes others in your life for your own good. You begin to withdraw, first socially, then emotionally, until silence becomes the new normal. Once isolated, your perspective warps. Without outside voices, your reality is shaped entirely by the manipulator. They decide what's true, what's safe, who's trustworthy, and when you start to feel uneasy, they frame your discomfort as proof that others have turned against you. It's a trap made of loneliness and dependency, reinforced by guilt and fear. Isolation tactics are the backbone of emotional and psychological control. They strip you of the mirrors that reflect who you really are, replacing them with one distorted reflection, the manipulator's version of you. And when you finally realize how small your world has become, it's not just people you've lost. It's the freedom to think, to choose, to feel unobserved. Normalization of small violations. Normalization of small violations is manipulation in slow motion, the gradual erosion of your boundaries through a series of seemingly insignificant transgressions. It begins quietly, a dismissive comment here, a broken promise there, a small disrespect that feels too minor to confront. You tell yourself, it's not worth the fight, but that's exactly how the trap is built. Inch by inch, tolerance replaces outrage, and what once felt wrong begins to feel normal. This tactic preys on adaptation. Humans adjust to discomfort over time, especially when it creeps in gently. Manipulators exploit this by pushing limits just far enough to provoke unease, then retreating before you push back. Each minor act lowers your defenses a little more until the unacceptable becomes routine. The first boundary crossed is never the real goal. It's only the test. You'll see it in relationships that start with teasing but end in cruelty, workplaces where unethical behavior becomes just how things are, or systems that justify exploitation under the guise of efficiency. The genius of this tactic is its patience. It doesn't demand surrender, it trains it. The emotional impact is devastating because by the time you notice the damage, it's already embedded in your daily reality. You question your sensitivity, your memory, your strength. The manipulator doesn't have to take power. They teach you to hand it over willingly, one compromise at a time. And when you finally look back, you realize the line they crossed long ago is the one you stopped defending without even realizing it. Withholding resources. Withholding resources is a slow, suffocating form of control, a tactic built on calculated deprivation. It's not about taking away what you have, it's about denying what you need. The manipulator starves you of time, money, information, affection, or access until dependency becomes obedience. By controlling the flow of essentials, emotional or material, they quietly rewrite the balance of power. At first, it feels like circumstance. They forget to share details, delay support, or claim they're too busy. But beneath the excuses lies intention, control through scarcity. When someone limits what you rely on, they force you to adapt to their terms. You start to compromise, justify, and shrink your expectations just to keep the peace. The deprivation becomes a language, one where silence replaces affection, confusion replaces clarity, and waiting becomes your way of proving loyalty. This tactic thrives on invisibility. It doesn't scream, it whispers. The manipulator appears generous one moment, withholding the next, keeping you in a cycle of uncertainty. You never know when your needs will be met, and that unpredictability keeps you hooked. It's emotional conditioning disguised as relationship management. In workplaces, it's the boss who controls information to keep teams divided. In families, it's love given and withdrawn like a paycheck. In relationships, it's intimacy rationed out as a reward for compliance. The cruelty of withholding resources is not just in what's denied, it's in how it makes you beg for what should have been freely given. And in that quiet desperation, the manipulator doesn't need to demand your submission. You hand it over, just hoping to be fed again. Blackmail/extortion. Blackmail and extortion are manipulative weapons that convert private vulnerability into coercive leverage. A cold transaction where someone's secret becomes currency. At its core, it is the deliberate gathering or threat of disclosure of information, real, embellished, or fabricated, to force compliance, silence, or payment. The tactic thrives on shame and fear. People will obey not because they consent, but because they dread exposure. This form of control is brutally efficient because it bypasses reason and fast-forwards the mind into imagining ruin. The emotional mechanics are precise. Shame isolates, shame paralyzes. The threatened person imagines reputations crumbling, relationships fracturing, careers collapsing. They replay worst-case scenarios until the cost of resistance eclipses the cost of surrender. Extortionists exploit this calculus, escalating pressure by suggesting leaks to loved ones, employers, or public platforms, or by manufacturing evidence and deadlines. Technology amplifies the danger. Screenshots, recordings, and anonymous platforms turn a private slip into a public weapon with terrifying speed. You encounter this tactic across intimate relationships, workplaces, and political arenas. It can be transactional, demanding money, or relational, demanding obedience, silence, or retracting support. Sometimes the leverage is subtle, a veiled allusion to knowing things that keep someone compliant without explicit threats. What makes blackmail uniquely pernicious is its corrosive aftereffect. Trust erodes, self-worth is hollowed out, and the victim becomes entangled in secrecy that fuels further manipulation. Resisting requires outside validation and legal support. Secrecy is the manipulator's ally. Awareness is a shield. Naming the tactic, documenting interactions, and reaching trusted allies breaks the imagined inevitability the extortionist depends on. Consequences. Emotional flooding. Emotional flooding is the deliberate drowning of another person's calm with a tidal wave of intense emotion, anger, tears, guilt, or panic unleashed all at once to overpower logic and seize control. It's not communication, it's a storm meant to silence you. When someone floods you emotionally, they're not trying to connect, they're trying to disarm. By overwhelming your senses, they short-circuit your ability to think clearly, forcing you into submission or compliance just to make the chaos stop. This tactic preys on empathy and shock. The manipulator raises their voice, cries uncontrollably or bombards you with accusations so relentless that you can't respond without feeling cruel or defensive. Your body reacts before your mind does. Your heart races, your muscles tense, your thoughts scatter. You're no longer reasoning, you're surviving, and that's exactly where they want you. In arguments, emotional flooding transforms a rational discussion into an emotional ambush. It's not about resolution, it's about dominance through disruption. They make you feel guilty for staying calm, as if your composure proves you don't care. Over time, you learn to avoid confrontation altogether, terrified of triggering another explosion. What makes emotional flooding so devastating is its unpredictability. You never know when the next outburst will come, and that uncertainty keeps you off balance. It trains you to self-censor, to tiptoe, to comply before conflict begins. The manipulator doesn't need to be right. They just need to be louder, more wounded, more explosive. And while the storm eventually passes, the silence that follows is soaked in control. Flattery for favors. Flattery for favors is manipulation wrapped in admiration, a calculated performance of praise meant not to appreciate you, but to disarm you. It begins with warmth so intoxicating that it feels genuine. Compliments arrive like a downpour. You're incredible at this. No one does it like you. You're the only one I trust. And before you realize it, the praise has softened your guard, blurring the line between appreciation and persuasion. Flattery triggers a primal pleasure. Our brains release dopamine when we feel valued. Manipulators know this. They weaponize your need to feel seen, turning validation into currency. The compliments come first, the request follows. It's not coincidence, it's choreography. You're made to feel special so that saying no feels like betrayal, as though refusing would prove their admiration was misplaced. This tactic thrives in professional hierarchies, friendships, and romantic entanglements alike. The manipulator flatters you just enough to make exploitation feel like cooperation. They mirror your pride, amplify your talents, and make you believe you're irreplaceable, all while positioning themselves to benefit from your compliance. The cruelty lies in the aftermath. Once the favor is granted, the warmth cools, the praise fades. You're left with a hollow ache, realizing the affection was conditional, a means to an end, yet part of you still craves it, still wonders what you did wrong to lose their approval. That's the hook. Flattery for favors doesn't just manipulate your actions, it manipulates your self-worth, teaching you to mistake exploitation for admiration and obedience for belonging. False reciprocity. False reciprocity is the illusion of fairness twisted into a weapon, a calculated exchange where generosity is never genuine, only transactional. It mimics the warmth of mutual giving, but hides the cold intent of manipulation. The tactic plays on one of the deepest human instincts, the need to be good, to return kindness with kindness. But here, the kindness is bait. Every favor, every gift, every act of generosity is an investment in future control. The manipulator gives not to connect, but to own. They offer help you didn't ask for, support you didn't need, affection that comes with invisible strings. You feel grateful, obligated even, and that's exactly the point. Once the emotional debt takes root, they begin to collect. After all I've done for you, they'll say, twisting your conscience into currency. You'll find yourself compromising, apologizing, or agreeing to things you never would have, just to feel even again. False reciprocity thrives in asymmetry. The manipulator always gives on their terms, never yours, ensuring the balance of power tilts subtly in their favor. It's not the size of the gift that matters. It's the expectation buried beneath it. And when you fail to meet that hidden expectation, guilt rushes in like gravity. This tactic is devastating because it weaponizes goodness itself. You start questioning your own decency, mistaking exploitation for gratitude. The manipulator never had to demand loyalty. They bought it. and by the time you realize their generosity was a leash, it's already wrapped around your throat, disguised as kindness. Crisis creation. Crisis creation is the manipulator's favorite stage play, a deliberate act of chaos designed to seize control by manufacturing panic. It's the calculated art of breaking stability just enough to make others crave the illusion of order that only the manipulator can provide. When calm no longer serves their power, they set the stage on fire, then stand proudly as the hero holding the only bucket of water. This tactic works because fear is blinding. When humans sense danger, our brains shift from logic to survival. The manipulator knows this. They ignite urgency, confusion, or conflict so that you'll stop asking questions and start obeying. They might spark a fight, spread misinformation, or create artificial deadlines, all to make you dependent on their solution. The chaos is never accidental, it's engineered. In relationships, it appears as constant drama, manufactured emergencies that keep you emotionally exhausted and easier to control. In organizations or politics, it's the leader who creates crises to justify overreach, then demands gratitude for restoring order. The pattern is always the same. Break it, fix it, take credit for saving it. What makes crisis creation so effective is how it weaponizes your trust. The manipulator poses as the rescuer of problems they secretly caused. You feel relief, not realization. And by the time you regain clarity, you've already handed over your peace, your loyalty, your power, grateful to the very person who lit the match. One-way transparency. One-way transparency is manipulation dressed as honesty, the illusion of openness used to extract your truth while revealing nothing in return. It thrives on imbalance. One person bears their soul, their fears, their secrets, while the other listens, collects, and stays shrouded in mystery. It feels intimate at first, even safe, but underneath the warmth lies calculation. The manipulator knows that vulnerability builds trust, and they weaponize yours to gain power. They might overshare selectively, personal stories, emotions, or confessions that make you feel close, even privileged to know them. But what they reveal is carefully curated, meant to make you open up deeper in response. It's not genuine transparency, it's bait. Once you begin to share, they store every word, every weakness, every soft spot. Later, they'll use that information to steer, guilt, or wound you. In workplaces, it looks like leaders demanding openness from subordinates while guarding their own motives. In relationships, it's partners who insist on full access to your life while keeping theirs behind locked doors. The imbalance becomes emotional surveillance. You feel obligated to expose yourself while they remain comfortably hidden. The brilliance of one-way transparency is how virtuous it appears. "I just want honesty between us," they'll say, while building a one-sided mirror that only reflects you. Over time, the dynamic shifts from mutual understanding to quiet exploitation. You mistake disclosure for connection, unaware that every truth you offer strengthens their control. It's not openness they want, it's access. And by the time you realize it, they already know too much. Selective disclosure. Selective disclosure is the art of manipulation through omission, the deliberate revelation of half-truths crafted to shape perception while concealing what truly matters. It's not about lying outright, it's about curating reality so precisely that the listener draws the desired conclusion, all on their own. The manipulator offers just enough truth to appear transparent, but not enough to expose the full picture. What's hidden is never random. It's the detail that would dismantle their control. This tactic thrives because the human mind fills in gaps. When someone gives partial information confidently, we assume completeness. We connect dots that were never meant to be connected, creating a story that feels logical because it's designed to. Politicians use it to steer public opinion. Abusers use it to rewrite history. Professionals use it to protect power. The genius of selective disclosure is that the deception hides behind the listener's own assumptions. It often masquerades as honesty. The manipulator opens up, reveals vulnerabilities, shares secrets, all to build trust. But every word is chosen, every omission strategic. They tell you enough to make you empathize, but never enough to hold them accountable. They control the narrative by rationing truth like currency, keeping you dependent on what they choose to reveal next. The cruelty of selective disclosure is that it makes deception feel intimate. You think you've been trusted, confided in, chosen, but what you've really been given is a story written to guide your emotions while the real one stays locked away, just beyond the reach of your understanding. Overwhelming deadlines. Overwhelming deadlines are the silent assassins of clear thinking, a manipulative tactic that weaponizes time itself. The manipulator creates artificial urgency, pushing you into panic so you'll act before you can think. We need an answer by tonight. This offer expires in an hour. If you don't decide now, we'll lose everything. The pressure feels external, but it's deliberately engineered to strip away your ability to pause, reflect, or question. Time pressure is one of the oldest psychological traps because it hijacks the body's stress response. When the clock is ticking, adrenaline floods your system, narrowing your focus to survival mode. You stop analyzing details and start grasping for safety, and the manipulator stands ready with the only solution. By the time the deadline hits, you've already chosen under duress, believing the rush was necessary when it was never real. This tactic thrives in both business and emotion. In negotiations, it forces quick concessions. In relationships, it demands instant forgiveness or commitment. In politics and media, it fuels outrage cycles that keep people reacting instead of reasoning. Every ticking second amplifies anxiety until compliance feels like relief. The cruelty of overwhelming deadlines is their illusion of inevitability. They make you feel powerless against time when, in truth, time has been weaponized against you. The manipulator doesn't need to persuade you. They just need to make you too exhausted, too rushed, too afraid to resist. And by the time you realize the urgency was fabricated, the ink is already dry, and your silence has been mistaken for consent. Appeal to fear. The appeal to fear is the oldest and most powerful form of psychological control, a manipulation that bypasses logic and speaks directly to the primal part of the human brain that screams survive. It replaces reasoning with terror, turning uncertainty into obedience. The manipulator doesn't need to prove their point. They just need to make you afraid of what happens if you don't agree. Fear sharpens focus, but narrows thought. It makes people act first and question later. That's why propagandists, abusers, and power-hungry leaders wield it so effectively. They paint vivid nightmares, threats of loss, rejection, poverty, humiliation, danger, and then position themselves as the only barrier between you and that imagined catastrophe. The goal isn't persuasion, it's paralysis. Once you're scared, you'll cling to anyone who promises safety. This tactic thrives in uncertainty. In relationships, it's the partner who warns, "No one else will love you like I do." In workplaces, it's the boss who implies that questioning authority risks your career. In politics, it's the voice declaring that dissent equals danger. Each version isolates you, shrinking your world until the manipulator's control feels like protection. The brilliance of the appeal to fear is that it hides behind concern. The tone is caring, the message protective, but the subtext is poison. Without me, you're in danger. Fear doesn't just shape behavior, it rewires perception. It makes lies sound logical and cruelty seem necessary. And the moment you accept fear as truth, the manipulator no longer needs to chase you. You'll cage yourself to feel safe. Appeal to pity. The appeal to pity is emotional manipulation wrapped in compassion, a deliberate play for your sympathy to bypass your logic and dismantle your boundaries. It works by forcing your empathy to make decisions your reason would never allow. The manipulator paints themselves as the wounded, the struggling, the unfairly burdened. Their pain becomes a weapon, their suffering a key that unlocks your defenses. This tactic thrives on guilt. The moment you start to feel responsible for their hardship, you begin to give time, forgiveness, resources, compliance. It doesn't matter whether their suffering is exaggerated, self-inflicted, or entirely fabricated. What matters is that you feel it, and in that feeling, your sense of justice, anger, or self-protection begins to erode. You tell yourself, they've been through so much. You start excusing behavior you would never tolerate from anyone else. The appeal to pity is powerful because it exploits the noblest parts of human nature: kindness and empathy. Manipulators understand that most people can't stand to see someone in pain, so they cry, tremble, or tell heartbreaking stories, not to heal, but to control. They use their fragility as armor and your compassion as a leash. Over time, you learn the unspoken rule: their suffering must always outweigh yours. Any attempt to assert yourself feels cruel. The appeal to pity doesn't ask for understanding, it demands surrender. And while you're busy trying to rescue them, they're quietly ensuring you never notice how they keep you trapped beneath the weight of their tears. Blame shifting. Blame shifting is the art of emotional escape, a manipulator's way of dodging accountability by making you carry the weight of their actions. It's not just denial, it's psychological sleight of hand. They twist reality until their wrongdoings become your fault, their cruelty becomes your provocation, and their failures become your responsibility. With each accusation disguised as defense, they rewrite the script so convincingly that you start questioning your own role in their chaos. It begins subtly, a small deflection, a casual excuse. I wouldn't have reacted that way if you hadn't. The moment you accept even part of that reasoning, the power shifts. They sense your empathy and use it as cover, feeding you guilt until you begin apologizing for their behavior. Over time, this dynamic becomes a loop of emotional exhaustion. They hurt, you explain. They accuse, you defend. And the more you justify yourself, the deeper you sink into their narrative. Blame shifting thrives in imbalance. It relies on your decency, your desire to understand, your fear of being unfair. The manipulator weaponizes those virtues against you, crafting scenarios where they're always the victim and you're always the cause. They cry louder than the person they've wounded, making you feel cruel for noticing the truth. What makes blame shifting so destructive is its erosion of self-trust. When you're constantly told you're at fault, you begin to believe it. And once doubt settles in, the manipulator doesn't need to defend themselves anymore. You'll do it for them, carrying their guilt as if it were your own. Retroactive justification. Retroactive justification is the art of rewriting history to make wrongdoing look reasonable, a psychological sleight of hand that transforms guilt into logic and manipulation into necessary choices. It's not about truth, it's about control over the narrative. The manipulator doesn't deny what happened, they reinterpret it, twisting the past until their behavior appears justified and your pain looks like overreaction. It begins with subtle reframing. They'll say, "I only did that because I cared," or "you pushed me to it." Each phrase distorts cause and effect, placing blame on your reaction instead of their action. Over time, you start to question your own memories, wondering if maybe you did provoke it, if maybe their cruelty was somehow your fault. That's the goal, to make you carry the weight of their choices. Retroactive justification is powerful because it exploits your empathy. The manipulator crafts explanations that sound rational, even compassionate. They appeal to your desire to understand, to forgive, and in doing so, they shift the spotlight away from accountability. The hurt remains, but now it's blurred by doubt. You'll hear it in relationships after betrayal, in workplaces after exploitation, in politics after scandal. The rewriting of harm as heroism. The manipulator doesn't erase the past, they repaint it. And the longer you listen, the more their version starts to sound true. The tragedy of retroactive justification is that it steals your right to feel wronged. It turns clarity into confusion and forces you to question whether the pain you remember ever really happened the way you think it did. Selective flattery. Selective flattery is the velvet-gloved hand of manipulation, a calculated use of praise that feels personal, but is strategically selective, crafted not to uplift you, but to steer you. It's not about admiration, it's about control. The manipulator studies you, learns your insecurities and hidden desires, then feeds you compliments like sugar-coated commands. They don't flatter everything, only the parts of you that serve their purpose. This technique works because humans crave recognition. When someone notices what others overlook, it feels intoxicating, like being truly seen. But selective flattery weaponizes that need, creating a quiet dependency on external validation. A manipulative boss might praise your dedication right before assigning extra work. A lover might call you strong right after emotionally withdrawing. A friend might admire your generosity as they cross your boundaries. The praise isn't random, it's conditioning. Selective flattery operates on timing. It's withheld when you resist, unleashed when you comply. Over time, your brain links approval with obedience. You start chasing compliments instead of fairness, equating compliance with worth. The manipulator never has to demand, they simply reward. What makes this tactic so sinister is its subtlety. The words sound kind, but the intent is cold. You don't realize you're being trained until the praise stops, and suddenly, silence feels like punishment. The manipulator doesn't just make you crave their approval, they make you fear its absence. And that's when flattery stops being admiration and becomes addiction. Confusion by contradiction. Confusion by contradiction is psychological fog disguised as dialogue, a manipulation tactic that fractures your sense of certainty by making reality itself feel unstable. It works by bombarding you with inconsistent statements, conflicting emotions, or opposing versions of events until you can no longer tell what's true. The manipulator shifts positions so often that your brain, desperate for clarity, begins to surrender just to find peace. This tactic isn't about truth, it's about disorientation. One day they praise you, the next they criticize you for the same thing. They say, "I never said that," moments after saying it. They deny evidence you just heard, contradict themselves mid-sentence, or accuse you of twisting their words. The goal isn't coherence, it's control through confusion. When your mind can't find steady ground, you stop trusting your own perception and start leaning on theirs. Confusion by contradiction is the cousin of gaslighting, but with a crueler rhythm. Rapid reversals that keep you emotionally dizzy. It's used by abusers, manipulators, and even institutions to break down resistance. The constant contradictions force you into mental fatigue, where compliance feels easier than confrontation. What makes it so dangerous is the psychological erosion it causes. Over time, you begin to question not just their truth, but your own. You replay conversations, doubt your memory, and lose confidence in your ability to judge reality. The manipulator thrives in that chaos. They don't need to be right. They just need you to be uncertain. And once confusion replaces conviction, control no longer requires force. It only needs doubt. False equivalence. False equivalence is manipulation dressed as logic, the act of comparing two things that are not truly alike to blur moral or factual boundaries. It's the favorite refuge of those caught in the wrong. When truth threatens their position, they drag something else into the mud to make both sides look equally dirty. By equating vastly different actions, intentions, or consequences, the manipulator poisons clarity and forces moral paralysis. It begins with a phrase that sounds reasonable: "Well, you've done the same thing," or "both sides are just as bad." On the surface, it feels balanced, fair, even, but beneath it lies a deliberate distortion. False equivalence is not about fairness, it's about dilution. It takes accountability and drowns it in comparison until responsibility disappears. The abuser who shouts says, "You raised your voice too." The corrupt official says, "Everyone bends the rules." It's not truth, it's camouflage. This tactic thrives on your sense of fairness. Good people want to be even-handed, to admit imperfection, to see nuance. The manipulator weaponizes that virtue, using your integrity as a shield against their wrongdoing. The moment you agree that maybe you're both to blame, they win. Not because they're right, but because you've accepted their distortion as possible truth. The emotional toll is heavy. You begin doubting your moral compass, apologizing when you're the one owed an apology. That's the power of false equivalence. It doesn't need to prove innocence. It only needs to confuse guilt. And once everything feels equally wrong, no one can be held accountable. Delegitimizing critics. Delegitimizing critics is the manipulator's shield, a defense mechanism designed not to disprove truth, but to destroy the credibility of those who speak it. When faced with accountability, the manipulator doesn't argue facts. They attack the messenger. The goal is to make every voice of dissent sound biased, bitter, unstable, or malicious, until no one dares to believe them. It's not persuasion, it's character assassination disguised as logic. This tactic thrives on distortion. The manipulator plants seeds of doubt. They've always had an agenda. They're just jealous. You can't trust someone like that. Slowly, the critic's reputation is eroded, not through evidence, but through innuendo. The truth becomes irrelevant once the source is discredited. It's psychological warfare waged through whispers. Delegitimizing critics is especially dangerous in power dynamics, workplaces, governments, families, where authority depends on perception. It isolates truth-tellers, turning them into pariahs. Others see the punishment for speaking up and stay silent, afraid of being branded the next problem. The manipulator doesn't have to silence everyone, just enough to make honesty look like betrayal. This tactic preys on social instincts. Humans fear rejection more than confrontation, so when someone's credibility is publicly stripped away, bystanders distance themselves. Soon, the critic's words echo in a vacuum, dismissed before they're even heard. The brilliance of this manipulation lies in its inversion of morality. The liar becomes the victim, the whistleblower becomes the villain. By delegitimizing critics, the manipulator doesn't just protect their image, they rewrite the social reality around them, ensuring that truth sounds like slander and silence looks like peace. Redirection. Redirection is the art of evasion, disguised as insight, a manipulative sleight of mind where the truth isn't denied, just quietly replaced. It's the deliberate shifting of focus away from accountability, guilt, or discomfort towards something safer, irrelevant, or emotionally charged. The manipulator doesn't need to win the argument. They just need to make you forget what the argument was about. It begins subtly. You raise a concern, and instead of addressing it, they pivot, questioning your tone, your memory, or your motives. They might bring up your past mistakes or introduce a new problem that suddenly feels more urgent. The shift is so smooth, you don't notice it happening. One moment, you're defending a fact, and the next, you're defending yourself. The original issue disappears, buried under emotional debris. Redirection thrives in chaos. Politicians use it to dodge scandals, partners use it to escape blame, and corporations use it to distract from misconduct. The tactic relies on your instinct to resolve tension. You chase the new topic, believing you're making progress, while the manipulator slips away untouched. Its brilliance lies in its subtle cruelty. Redirection doesn't silence you, it exhausts you. You start to question your memory, your right to clarity, even your sanity. Each conversation feels like quicksand, pulling you deeper the more you struggle. The manipulator knows they don't need to erase the truth. They just have to lead your mind far enough away that you stop looking for it. Overpromising future rewards. Overpromising future rewards is the art of dangling hope like a carrot, offering glowing visions of what could be to keep you compliant in the present. It's not about fulfilling promises, it's about controlling through anticipation. The manipulator paints the future in vivid colors: success, recognition, love, security, until your present discomfort feels like a necessary sacrifice. You stay, you work, you obey, because the promise feels too good to risk losing. This tactic thrives on emotional investment. The manipulator knows that once you've imagined the reward, your mind starts to crave it like it already exists. A boss hints at a promotion once you prove yourself. A partner promises change after this rough patch. A leader promises prosperity just around the corner. Each promise buys them time, loyalty, and silence, and each delay deepens your attachment because you've already built your future around their words. The cruelty lies in its illusion of progress. You believe you're moving towards something meaningful, when in truth, you're standing still, feeding someone else's control with your patience. When you ask for accountability, they plead for understanding. You just have to trust me. Or, good things take time. The timeline always stretches, the reward always recedes, and your hope becomes their leash. Overpromising future rewards is manipulation wrapped in optimism. It weaponizes your dreams, turning your faith into submission. And the longer you wait, the harder it becomes to walk away, because to leave means admitting the future you fought for was never real. Iterative conditioning. Iterative conditioning is the slow sculpting of behavior through repetition, a manipulator's method of training you to respond the way they want, one subtle reinforcement at a time. It doesn't strike suddenly, it seeps in gradually, blending reward and punishment until your reactions no longer belong to you. It's how control masquerades as connection, how obedience hides beneath routine. At first, it feels harmless, maybe even loving. They praise you when you act a certain way, go cold when you don't. A smile for compliance, silence for resistance. Over time, your nervous system learns the pattern. Approval feels safe, disapproval feels unbearable. You begin anticipating their moods, reshaping your choices to avoid punishment. The conditioning deepens not through force, but through repetition, until pleasing them becomes second nature. The genius of iterative conditioning is its invisibility. Each small act of control seems insignificant on its own, easy to excuse or overlook. But strung together, these moments form a psychological cage. You don't notice the bars being built because you've been taught to decorate them, to mistake manipulation for care, consistency for stability, control for love. This tactic thrives in relationships, workplaces, and cult-like systems where compliance is rewarded just enough to feel like belonging. It transforms autonomy into anxiety, convincing you that freedom is chaos and obedience is peace. And the most haunting part, when the conditioning is complete, the manipulator no longer needs to demand your submission. You offer it willingly, mistaking your own compliance for choice. Secret clauses. Secret clauses are the hidden daggers of deceit, buried commitments concealed within the fine print of agreements, relationships, and promises. They're not always legal documents. Sometimes they're emotional contracts, verbal deals, or moral understandings quietly rewritten after your consent. The manipulator counts on your trust, your distraction, or your eagerness, knowing you won't notice the trap until it tightens. This tactic thrives on your assumption of transparency. You think you've understood the deal, but the manipulator has already loaded it with unspoken terms. The favor that suddenly comes with strings attached. The job opportunity that demands unpaid loyalty. The relationship built on expectations you never agreed to, but are later blamed for violating. Secret clauses are the invisible ink of manipulation. You only see them when the light changes. The power of this tactic lies in timing. The manipulator waits until you're committed, financially, emotionally, or socially, before revealing what was always part of the agreement. They twist your trust into compliance, insisting that you simply forgot or misunderstood. And because you've already invested, walking away feels like betrayal instead of survival. What makes secret clauses so insidious is how they turn honesty into disadvantage. The more you believe in good faith, the easier you are to bind. The manipulator doesn't need force or threats, just your assumption that everything was clear. By the time you realize the rules were rewritten, your silence has been weaponized, and your signature, spoken or not, has already sealed the deal. False equivalence of sacrifice. The false equivalence of sacrifice is emotional manipulation disguised as fairness, a twisted argument that demands your guilt, loyalty, or submission by comparing two sacrifices that were never equal. It's the claim that because they gave something up, you now owe them something in return, even when the scales of cost, choice, and consequence are worlds apart. The manipulator doesn't seek balance, they seek leverage. This tactic works because it hijacks empathy. Humans are wired to value reciprocity, to make things even. The manipulator weaponizes that instinct, framing their choices as noble acts of suffering for your sake. After everything I've done for you, they'll say, as if their decisions were selfless gifts instead of strategic investments. The underlying message is simple but venomous. You don't get to say no. You owe me. In relationships, this may look like a partner bringing up past sacrifices to justify emotional neglect or control. In workplaces, it's a superior reminding you of their long hours to guilt you into silence or overwork. In families, it's a parent rewriting love as lifelong debt. The sacrifice becomes currency, and you become the debtor. The brilliance of this manipulation lies in its plausibility. Real sacrifice exists, but the false equivalence twists it, erasing context and inflating martyrdom until gratitude becomes servitude. Over time, you start believing that fairness means surrender, that love requires repayment, and by the time you notice the imbalance, you're already apologizing for never being able to give as much as they claim they did. Social isolation in groups. Social isolation in groups is one of the most chilling forms of psychological control. Loneliness delivered in the presence of others. It happens when a manipulator turns the collective against a single target, not by direct exclusion, but by subtle social engineering. You're still invited, still visible, still part of the team, yet you feel the cold distance of invisible walls. Conversations pause when you walk in. Decisions happen without you. Smiles become polite but empty. You're surrounded by people, yet entirely alone. This tactic feeds on the primal human need for belonging. Within any group, workplace, community, friend circle, acceptance equals safety. Manipulators weaponize that need by quietly reshaping perception. They spread half-truths, plant doubts, or highlight your mistakes in just the right tone to make others pull back. The isolation doesn't come from force, it grows from whispers, and because it's rarely open hostility, you can't call it out without sounding paranoid. What makes social isolation in groups so devastating is how it rewires self-worth. The silence starts to echo. You begin to question what you did wrong, replay every interaction, and shrink yourself in hopes of regaining approval. But the harder you try, the more power the manipulator gains. They've turned the group into a mirror that reflects your exclusion. Eventually, you stop speaking up, you stop trusting your instincts, you internalize the exile. Social isolation in groups isn't just emotional cruelty, it's identity erosion through neglect. You're made to disappear in plain sight, and the most haunting part is that everyone else believes it was your choice. Smear campaigns. Smear campaigns are the art of reputation assassination. Systematic efforts to destroy someone's credibility through lies, half-truths, and whispers that spread faster than the truth ever could. They are the manipulator's weapon of mass distortion, designed not to prove anything, but to plant enough doubt that people stop trusting you altogether. The goal isn't justice, it's isolation. Once your reputation is tainted, you become easier to control, dismiss, or erase. It often begins quietly, with a hint or an insinuation. "I'm just concerned," they'll say, or, "I've heard things." These phrases are surgical. They sound caring, but they bleed your image slowly. The manipulator counts on human nature. Once a rumor is heard, it can never be unheard. People start to look at you differently, hesitate to defend you, and eventually distance themselves, not because they believe the lies, but because they fear the fallout of standing beside you. Smear campaigns thrive on spectacle and silence. They rely on the manipulator's charm and your restraint. If you stay quiet, they say your silence proves guilt. If you defend yourself, they twist it into overreaction. Either way, the narrative bends toward their control. What makes this tactic so devastating is its precision. It doesn't aim to destroy your life all at once, just your credibility. Bit by bit, it turns allies into spectators and self-assurance into self-doubt. The smear campaign doesn't need to kill your truth. It only needs to make the world stop listening to it. Manufactured incompetence. Manufactured incompetence is the quiet art of strategic helplessness, a manipulative act where someone pretends to be incapable just long enough for you to take over. It's the calculated shrug, the "I just don't know how," the innocent mistake that conveniently shifts responsibility from them to you. Beneath the surface lies intent to avoid accountability, conserve effort, or subtly control the balance of labor and power. The brilliance of this tactic is in its disguise. It doesn't look like manipulation, it looks like need. You feel guilty watching someone struggle, so you step in. You do the task just this once, but soon it becomes routine. The manipulator learns that your frustration always ends in your compliance, and their incompetence becomes the leash. Every sigh, every eye roll, every silent takeover reinforces the unspoken rule. They don't have to try because you always will. This tactic thrives in emotional relationships and hierarchical structures alike. In workplaces, it's the coworker who forgets how to complete a task until you handle it. In homes, it's the partner who can't cook or isn't good with bills. The manipulator positions themselves as dependent, turning your competence into their convenience. What makes manufactured incompetence so poisonous is how it corrodes respect. Over time, you stop seeing partnership, you see burden, and yet, the more you carry, the guiltier you feel for resenting it. The manipulator doesn't steal your strength, they let you give it away, one weary concession at a time, until exhaustion feels like duty and resentment feels like failure. Selective empathy. Selective empathy is the manipulator's emotional disguise, a performance of compassion applied only where it benefits them, withheld where it might threaten their control. It's not true empathy, it's strategic empathy. The manipulator listens, comforts, and mirrors your pain when it serves their purpose. But when your feelings clash with their interests, their warmth turns to ice. They know exactly when to care and when to cut off, using compassion like a switch they control. This tactic thrives on confusion. You've seen their tenderness before, the gentle tone, the reassuring words, so when they suddenly withdraw, you assume it's your fault. You chase their empathy, trying to earn back the connection. That's the trap. Selective empathy trains you to associate emotional safety with obedience. When you please them, they soothe you. When you question them, they go cold. It's not empathy, it's conditioning. In relationships, selective empathy keeps partners hooked on emotional breadcrumbs, mistaking manipulation for intimacy. In leadership, it builds loyalty through targeted compassion, supporting some while ignoring others to maintain hierarchy and dependency. And in families, it creates lifelong confusion where love feels unpredictable and affection becomes a reward, not a right. The brilliance of selective empathy lies in its realism. It feels genuine because sometimes it is. The manipulator doesn't fake every emotion, they ration it. They give just enough to prove they care, then withhold it to remind you who controls the comfort. And once you've tasted their kindness, you'll do almost anything to feel it again, even if it means staying in their grasp. Threats of economic harm. Threats of economic harm are coercion dressed in practicality, the cold, strategic use of financial fear to bend someone's will. It's a form of control that doesn't need shouting or violence, just the quiet reminder of dependence. The manipulator doesn't have to say, "Do as I say or else." They simply make you imagine what "or else" would feel like. Losing your job, losing stability, losing the roof over your head. Fear does the rest. This tactic thrives where power and money intertwine. Workplaces, relationships, institutions. A boss hints that team players get the raises. A partner controls shared finances and freezes accounts after arguments. A landlord implies eviction if you speak up. The threat is rarely explicit. It's psychological. They let the possibility hang in the air, heavy and paralyzing. You begin to self-censor, to comply, to stay quiet, not because they demanded it, but because the cost of defiance feels unbearable. What makes threats of economic harm so effective is how deeply money ties to survival and dignity. It's not greed, it's fear. Financial insecurity strips people of choices, turning independence into obedience. And manipulators know that when someone is worried about survival, they'll tolerate almost anything. Over time, this control becomes invisible. You stop thinking in terms of right and wrong and start thinking in terms of risk and consequence. Every decision becomes a calculation of loss. Threats of economic harm don't just attack your wallet, they attack your freedom to say no. It's control enforced not by chains, but by the terrifying question, how will you survive without me? Moral grandstanding. Moral grandstanding is the theater of virtue, a performance of righteousness, not meant to inspire goodness, but to dominate through moral superiority. It's the manipulator's way of weaponizing ethics, turning values into a stage and empathy into applause. They don't seek understanding or resolution, they seek recognition. Their outrage is not about the cause, it's about being seen as the one who cares most. It begins with moral language that feels noble, even uplifting. They speak of justice, compassion, truth, but their tone carries venom disguised as virtue. Every statement is calibrated to elevate themselves and diminish dissent. If you question them, you're labeled heartless. If you hesitate, you're complicit. They use morality not as a compass, but as a cudgel. This tactic thrives in social spaces hungry for validation. Online platforms, workplaces, even families, where reputation is currency. The moral grandstander feeds on visibility, using emotional rhetoric to rally support and silence opposition. Their words sound pure, but their intent is power, to control the narrative, to dictate what is good, and to shame anyone who doesn't submit. The most insidious part is how convincing it feels. You may begin doubting your own decency, scrambling to prove your goodness under their watchful eye. But the more you appease, the more impossible their standards become. Moral grandstanding doesn't aim for truth, it aims for dominance through moral exhaustion. And in the end, it's not virtue they crave, it's the intoxicating high of being untouchable while standing on the ruins of everyone else's integrity. Backhanded compliments. Backhanded compliments are the velvet-gloved punches of manipulation, phrases that sound like praise but sting like poison. They're crafted to confuse, to disarm, to make you smile while you bleed inside. You look great for your age. I didn't expect you to handle that so well. You're smarter than you seem. Each one lands softly, but beneath the surface it delivers a subtle message. You're not enough. This tactic thrives on emotional whiplash. The manipulator cloaks criticism in charm, making it socially risky for you to call it out. If you react, you seem oversensitive. If you stay silent, the seed of self-doubt takes root. That's the brilliance of the backhanded compliment. It humiliates you while giving the speaker moral cover. They can always say, "I was just being nice." It's a psychological trap that forces you into self-questioning. You replay the words, wondering if you misunderstood, if you're the problem. That uncertainty is exactly what the manipulator wants. It keeps you off balance, craving real validation from the same person who undermined you. You'll find this tactic in workplaces, social circles, and intimate relationships, anywhere ego and control collide. The manipulator uses it to assert dominance subtly, to elevate themselves by lowering you just enough that you feel grateful for the attention. The cruelty of backhanded compliments is their elegance. They don't break you outright. They erode you slowly, teaching you to smile through insult and call it kindness. Over time, you start mistaking mockery for affection, and that's when they've truly won. Micro-manipulation of language. Micro-manipulation of language is a subtle, psychological weapon, a quiet twisting of words and tone to distort meaning, shift power, and reshape your emotional reality without you even realizing it. It's not about what's said, it's about how it's said. A single word choice, a pause, or a tonal shift can transform accusation into innocence, guilt into obligation, and truth into confusion. The manipulator doesn't raise their voice. They reshape your thoughts with surgical precision. This tactic thrives in the gray areas of communication. The manipulator uses ambiguity to blur accountability. "I never said that. You're reading too much into it. I was just joking." They plant linguistic landmines, statements that sound harmless but explode under emotional weight. Through half-truths, leading phrasing, and suggestive wordplay, they can make you question not just what was said, but what was meant. Micro-manipulation of language feeds on subtlety. It appears in relationships where one partner constantly redefines past conversations, in workplaces where leaders use jargon to conceal exploitation, and in politics where euphemisms disguise harm. The manipulator's mastery lies in plausible deniability. They never lie outright. They guide your interpretation. The emotional impact is disorienting. You begin to doubt your memory, your tone, your understanding. Every conversation becomes a linguistic maze, and the harder you try to explain yourself, the deeper you're pulled into theirs. This is how control takes root, not through shouting, but through softly spoken distortions that make you rewrite reality in the manipulator's language until you can no longer tell which words are truly yours. Overly complex contract language. Overly complex contract language is manipulation disguised as professionalism, a calculated labyrinth of words designed to confuse, fatigue, and quietly bind. It hides exploitation behind sophistication, making the victim feel ignorant for not understanding what was never meant to be clear. Every clause, every cross-reference, every page of legal jargon isn't there to inform, it's there to overwhelm. This tactic thrives on intimidation. Dense contracts create an illusion of authority, where complexity itself becomes a barrier to questioning. The manipulator knows that most people won't admit confusion. They'll nod politely, sign quickly, and trust that the other party knows what they're doing. That trust becomes the perfect trap. Inside the fine print lie the hooks, hidden fees, one-sided terms, endless obligations, all legally protected by your own signature. Corporations use it to mask predatory terms. Employers use it to bury exploitation in policy. Even in personal relationships, manipulators use rules, agreements, or expectations that sound fair but are deliberately convoluted. The goal isn't to communicate, it's to conceal. The emotional power of this tactic lies in how it weaponizes shame. When you struggle to understand, you assume the problem is you. You question your intelligence, not their integrity. And that self-doubt is exactly what they need. Overly complex language doesn't just trap you legally, it traps you psychologically, conditioning you to equate confusion with compliance. By the time the consequences surface, it's too late. You realize the truth wasn't hidden in the document. It was hidden in plain sight, beneath the comforting illusion that complexity means legitimacy, illicit information gathering. Illicit information gathering is manipulation through surveillance, a covert hunt for your secrets, fears, and weaknesses disguised as curiosity or care. It's not about knowing you, it's about owning you. The manipulator collects fragments of your life, casual confessions, social media posts, offhand remarks, and stores them like ammunition, waiting for the perfect moment to use them. Every question feels innocent until you realize it wasn't a conversation, it was an extraction. This tactic thrives on false intimacy. The manipulator makes you feel safe, seen, even special. They ask questions that sound attentive. How are things at work? Do you trust your boss? You and your family still close? But beneath the warmth lies calculation. They're mapping your vulnerabilities, probing for tension points, emotional triggers, or leverage they can later exploit. What feels like connection is really reconnaissance. In professional settings, it hides behind team building and mentorship. In personal life, it's wrapped in empathy. They'll mirror your emotions, lure you into oversharing, then weaponize your words when control is needed, turning your truths into threats, your stories into shackles. The brilliance of illicit information gathering is its subtlety. You rarely notice it happening until it's too late, and when the betrayal comes, it feels surgical, because it is. They didn't guess your pain, they studied it. They took the very things you revealed in trust and forged them into tools of coercion. In their hands, knowledge stops being understanding. It becomes power sharpened to pierce the soul of the unsuspecting. False friendship. False friendship is the sweetest poison, a manipulation that hides control beneath the warmth of connection. It begins with charm, laughter, and shared secrets. The manipulator mirrors your interests, flatters your dreams, and makes you feel seen in ways others never have. But beneath the illusion of closeness lies calculation. Every conversation, every favor, every comforting word is an investment, one that will be cashed in when your guard is down. This tactic preys on trust. The manipulator builds emotional intimacy not for mutual care, but for leverage. They gather your vulnerabilities like currency, listening just long enough to learn how to use them. When the time comes, the affection fades and the pressure begins. Guilt, expectation, obligation. You're left wondering how someone who seemed to care so deeply could twist your loyalty into a tool for control. False friendship thrives on contrast. The manipulator alternates between warmth and withdrawal, creating confusion that binds you tighter. You chase the high of their approval, desperate to return to the version of them that once felt genuine. But that version was never real, it was bait. In workplaces, it's the ally who praises you publicly but undermines you privately. In personal life, it's the confidant who only shows up when they need something. The betrayal cuts deeper because it mimics love so perfectly. The cruelty of false friendship is that it turns your best qualities, trust, empathy, loyalty, against you. You don't just lose the friendship, you lose faith in your own ability to tell who's real. And that's the final victory for the manipulator, when their lie makes you question every truth that follows. Tokenism. Tokenism is manipulation disguised as inclusion, a hollow gesture of representation meant to project fairness while preserving control. It's the act of spotlighting one person, one story, or one symbol from a marginalized or underrepresented group, not to empower them, but to protect the system that still excludes the rest. The manipulator doesn't want change, they want the appearance of it. At its core, tokenism exploits visibility. It offers someone a seat at the table, then bolts their chair to the floor. Their presence becomes proof that everything's equal now, even when the structure hasn't shifted an inch. In workplaces, it's the lone woman on a board used to deflect criticism of sexism. In media, it's a single diverse character inserted to check a box. In social movements, it's the selective amplification of a voice that's safe for optics. The cruelty of tokenism lies in how it isolates. The token is paraded, praised, and simultaneously silenced. Their success becomes a shield for others' inaction. Their individuality used to erase the systemic issue itself. They're told they should be grateful for being included at all, while any critique is dismissed as ingratitude. What makes tokenism so insidious is that it feels like progress. It seduces both outsiders and insiders into believing inclusion has been achieved. But beneath the surface lies exploitation, the use of one person's image to protect the comfort of many. Tokenism doesn't dismantle inequality, it disguises it, ensuring the illusion of diversity thrives while true equity remains carefully out of reach. Selective accountability. Selective accountability is manipulation through hypocrisy, the calculated act of enforcing rules on others while quietly exempting oneself. It's a control tactic that weaponizes fairness, turning morality into a one-way mirror. The manipulator holds everyone else to impossible standards, demanding precision, obedience, and humility, while excusing their own failures with charm, authority, or deflection. The message is clear: you are accountable, I am exceptional. This technique thrives in power dynamics. Leaders who punish mistakes they routinely commit, partners who demand honesty while lying, or peers who preach responsibility but vanish when consequences arrive. It's not just double standards, it's psychological conditioning. By watching rules shift depending on who's in control, you learn that fairness is a privilege, not a principle. You begin to police yourself harder than they ever could, terrified of being accused, criticized, or shamed. The brilliance of selective accountability lies in its moral camouflage. The manipulator often appears righteous, even disciplined, using others' failures as proof of their own superiority. When confronted, they deflect. Don't make this about me. If they apologize, it's strategic, never sincere, a brief show of humility to maintain dominance. Over time, selective accountability corrodes trust in reality itself. You start to question your own integrity while they stand untouched behind the illusion of authority. It's a slow erosion of justice, one that convinces you that fairness is earned, not owed. The cruelest part is that you keep trying to meet a standard they never intended to live by, trapped in a system where the rules only exist for you. Coercive penalties tied to deadlines. Coercive penalties tied to deadlines are manipulation disguised as urgency, a calculated pressure tactic that fuses time with threat. It's not about efficiency or productivity. It's about control. The manipulator creates a false sense of immediacy and attaches consequences to hesitation, forcing you to choose under duress. If you don't decide by tonight, the offer's gone. If this isn't done by morning, there will be consequences. The clock becomes their weapon, each tick amplifying your anxiety and shrinking your options. This tactic preys on fear, the fear of loss, of punishment, of being too late. Under pressure, rational thought collapses and the brain shifts into survival mode. You stop thinking critically and start thinking desperately. Manipulators know this. They don't want your best decision, they want your fastest compliance. The urgency they create isn't real. It's manufactured to rob you of clarity. It thrives in workplaces, negotiations, and abusive relationships alike. Deadlines are framed as standard procedure or policy, when in truth they're engineered to corner you. You're given just enough time to panic, but never enough to reflect. Each missed moment feels catastrophic, each delay like failure. And when you finally give in, the relief is mistaken for resolution, when it's really surrender. Coercive deadlines turn time itself into a psychological trap. They make freedom feel dangerous and obedience feel safe. And by the time the clock runs out, you've learned the manipulator's unspoken rule. The choice was never yours. It was only ever how quickly you would break. Peer pressure within hierarchy. Peer pressure within hierarchy is the quiet current of control that flows downward through approval and upward through fear. It's not the loud command of authority, it's the silent expectation to conform, to obey, to please those above, while fitting seamlessly among those beside you. In this environment, disobedience doesn't need punishment. Isolation is punishment enough. The manipulator understands this perfectly and turns social belonging into a leash. It begins with subtle cues, a raised eyebrow from a superior, a knowing glance among peers, an unspoken rule that certain ideas are off limits. You start noticing how others comply without being asked, how dissent disappears behind polite smiles. The hierarchy doesn't need to enforce obedience, it breathes it into the culture. To question becomes to risk exclusion. To speak truth becomes to threaten harmony. This form of manipulation thrives on your craving for acceptance. You don't want to be the difficult one, the rebel, the outlier who doesn't get it. So you adapt. You mimic their tone, their values, their silence. Over time, conformity starts to feel like safety, and individuality begins to feel like danger. The brilliance of peer pressure within hierarchy is its invisibility. It doesn't demand submission, it normalizes it. The manipulator doesn't have to raise their voice or issue threats. The group will do it for them. You'll find yourself policing your own behavior, reshaping your opinions to match the room, convincing yourself it's professionalism when it's really fear. And by the time you notice how much of yourself you've edited away, the applause around you will sound like approval, but it's really compliance echoing back. Framing/manipulating data. Framing or manipulating data is the sophisticated mask of modern deceit, a tactic that dresses lies in numbers and statistics to make manipulation look like logic. It's not about fabricating facts outright, it's about twisting context, omitting key details, and cherry-picking results until the truth bends into whatever story the manipulator wants you to believe. In a world that worships data, this technique is the ultimate illusion of credibility. The human mind trusts numbers. They feel cold, objective, immune to emotion, but that's exactly why manipulators exploit them. They present partial truths wrapped in charts, averages, and selective comparisons, knowing that once data looks official, people stop questioning its source. Evidence becomes the shield for deception. The phrasing changes from "this might be true" to "the data proves it." But proof can be an illusion when context is stripped away. You see it in politics, where statistics are framed to amplify fear or success. In corporations, where reports are polished to hide losses or inflate impact. Even in personal relationships, where selective storytelling, sharing only certain facts, becomes emotional data manipulation. The manipulator doesn't need to lie, they just change the frame, and suddenly the same picture tells a different story. The brilliance of this tactic lies in its calmness. There's no aggression, no obvious deceit, only confidence and spreadsheets. It preys on your trust in logic while quietly steering your perception. And by the time you realize you've been misled, you're not fighting an argument, you're fighting facts. And nothing feels lonelier than standing against numbers that were never whole to begin with. Conditional offers. Conditional offers are manipulation masked as generosity, promises that come with invisible strings attached. On the surface, they sound like opportunities, gifts, or acts of goodwill. But beneath the sweetness lies a quiet ultimatum. You can have this, but only on my terms. The manipulator doesn't give freely. They bargain for control, wrapping their demands in the language of kindness. This tactic thrives on dependency and desire. It targets what you need most: approval, stability, advancement, affection, and dangles it just out of reach. A boss promises a raise if you stay loyal. A partner offers love if you stop questioning. A friend helps you as long as you remember who was there for you. The offer is never about support. It's about shaping your behavior through expectation. The brilliance of conditional offers lies in their disguise. They sound fair, even reasonable. You're not forced to comply, you choose to, but the emotional leverage is suffocating. You feel guilty for hesitating, ungrateful for resisting, selfish for wanting unconditional respect. By accepting the condition, you teach the manipulator that your needs can be controlled through reward. What makes this tactic so devastating is how it rewires love, trust, and ambition into transactions. Every interaction becomes a test of worthiness. You stop doing things from genuine will and start doing them to avoid loss. Conditional offers don't build connection. They build cages made of favors and fear. And once you've stepped inside, every yes feels like gratitude, when really, it's surrender disguised as choice. Reputation threats. Reputation threats are psychological extortion. The calculated promise to destroy your image if you don't comply. They're not about truth, they're about fear. The manipulator knows that reputation is identity, and identity is survival. They whisper the most dangerous phrase in emotional warfare: I could ruin you. Suddenly, every secret, every misstep, every private moment feels like a loaded gun aimed at your life. This tactic thrives on vulnerability. It begins with trust. Confidence is shared in moments of intimacy or collaboration. The manipulator collects these details like trophies, storing them for leverage. When conflict arises, affection turns to menace. You wouldn't want people to know about that, would you? The threat doesn't have to be spoken outright to be effective. It just has to linger, poisoning every interaction with silent terror. Reputation threats work because they trap you between humiliation and compliance. You become hypervigilant, policing your words, pleasing your enemy, living in fear of exposure. The manipulator feeds on this fear, enjoying the quiet power of knowing they own the narrative of who you are. And even if they never act on the threat, the damage is already done. You censor yourself before they ever have to. This is not control through violence or logic. It's control through shame. The fear of being misunderstood, mocked, or disbelieved becomes the leash around your throat. In the end, the manipulator doesn't need to destroy your reputation. They just need you to believe they can. Once that fear takes root, silence becomes their most obedient accomplice. Exploiting scarcity of alternatives. Exploiting scarcity of alternatives is the manipulator's game of confinement, a tactic that turns your lack of options into their throne. It thrives on fear, not persuasion. When someone convinces you that they, and only they, hold the key to what you need, security, love, stability, opportunity, they don't have to be kind, fair, or even right. They just have to make you believe you can't do better. This tactic begins with subtle isolation. A partner discourages you from seeing friends. A boss convinces you the job market is hopeless. A leader insists that loyalty is your only protection from chaos. Slowly, your world shrinks until every road seems to lead back to them. It's not that you're trapped by chains. It's that they've convinced you the outside world doesn't exist. Manipulators use scarcity to make dependency feel like devotion. They erode your confidence, diminish your sense of worth, and exaggerate the risks of leaving. You'll never find someone who cares like I do. Other companies won't treat you this well. You're lucky to even have this. Each phrase is a tightening noose, disguised as concern. The cruelty of this tactic is that it feeds on hope. You keep believing that if you stay, it will get better, that your gratitude will be rewarded. But the truth is, scarcity is rarely real. It's engineered. The manipulator doesn't need to lock the door. They just need to make you afraid to open it. And once that fear takes root, freedom doesn't feel like escape anymore. It feels like loss. Pseudo-expertise. Pseudo-expertise is confidence masquerading as credibility, a calculated performance of authority meant to silence doubt and hijack trust. It's the manipulator's favorite mask: polished language, borrowed knowledge, and unwavering certainty. They don't need real qualifications or evidence. They just need to sound like they have them. The illusion of expertise is often more persuasive than expertise itself, because people are drawn to certainty more than truth. This tactic thrives in the gray areas of knowledge. The pseudo-expert speaks in jargon, quotes half-understood studies, or references vague industry insights to overwhelm you into submission. They answer every question with ease, using tone instead of proof. The goal isn't clarity, it's dominance. By making you feel less informed, they position themselves as the authority you must rely on. You'll see it in every sphere: the influencer claiming secret knowledge, the colleague who speaks over others with unearned confidence, the leader whose charisma hides incompetence. Pseudo-expertise feeds on your self-doubt. When you hesitate, they pounce with certainty, and the human brain, wired to trust conviction, falls in line. The danger lies in how soothing it feels. The pseudo-expert gives you direction when you're lost, answers when you're unsure, but their confidence is a mirage built on your uncertainty. The more you trust their voice, the quieter your own becomes, and by the time you notice the cracks in their knowledge, you've already handed them the one thing real experts never demand: blind faith. Forced framing. Forced framing is the art of control through perspective, a psychological trap where the manipulator defines the terms of reality before you even have a chance to think. It's not about what is being discussed, but how it's being presented. They build the frame, and once you step into it, every response you give reinforces their version of the truth. It's a subtle, elegant form of dominance, shaping your thoughts by limiting your options. The manipulator might say, "Why are you overreacting again?" Or, "When did you decide to stop caring?" Phrases that dictate both the problem and your role in it. The framing leaves you trapped between two false choices: defend yourself within their narrative or stay silent and confirm it. Either way, you're caught. The brilliance of forced framing is that it makes defiance look irrational and compliance look like reason. This tactic thrives in arguments, media spin, and manipulative leadership. By controlling the lens, they control interpretation. They exaggerate one angle, omit another, and box you into a moral corner where only their view appears sane. Even when you sense the distortion, you find yourself speaking their language, using their definitions, fighting battles they've already rigged. Forced framing doesn't need to shout, it whispers structure. It's the invisible architecture of manipulation, the walls built around thought. Once inside, you start to question yourself instead of the frame. And that's when the manipulator wins, not because they proved they were right, but because they made you forget there was ever another way to see. Conditional sympathy. Conditional sympathy is compassion with strings attached, the manipulator's way of offering comfort only when it serves their agenda. It masquerades as care, yet it's transactional at its core. The empathy feels real at first. They listen, they soothe, they say the right words, but beneath the warmth lies calculation. Their kindness is never free. It's earned through compliance, loyalty, or silence. And when you no longer serve their purpose, their sympathy vanishes as quickly as it appeared. This tactic thrives in emotional imbalance. The manipulator learns what soothes you and uses it as currency. They become your refuge when you're hurting, teaching you to associate their approval with relief. But the comfort they give is conditional. It's granted when you align with them and withdrawn when you resist. Soon, you stop disagreeing, stop expressing pain that doesn't flatter them, because you've been trained to fear emotional abandonment. Conditional sympathy is one of the cruelest forms of control because it weaponizes the very thing people crave most: understanding. It twists empathy into manipulation, making love feel like a negotiation. The manipulator positions themselves as your savior, then punishes you the moment you forget your dependency. Over time, this dynamic corrodes your self-worth. You start believing you have to earn kindness, that your pain must be convenient to deserve care. And that's the quiet tragedy of conditional sympathy. It doesn't just teach you to accept manipulation, It teaches you to thank it for feeling like love. Time-slicing decisions. Time-slicing decisions is the manipulator's way of dismantling your resistance one sliver at a time. Instead of asking for a full commitment up front, they break the decision into fragments, each one small enough to seem harmless, each one building quietly toward a conclusion you never consciously chose. It's a psychological slow drip that turns hesitation into consent before you realize what's happening. This tactic works because our minds crave closure. When faced with a series of minor, time-pressured choices, we stop evaluating the larger picture. The manipulator uses that blindness to their advantage. They'll say, "Just agree to this part for now. We'll discuss the rest later." It's only temporary. But each fragment is a step deeper into the design they've already planned. By the time the final piece arrives, saying no feels impossible. You've already said yes 100 times in smaller ways. Time slicing thrives in negotiations, relationships, and contracts where urgency clouds reflection. It's the company that pushes multiple micro-approvals until you've signed away control, the partner who escalates boundaries inch by inch, the authority that introduces restrictions slowly so no one revolts all at once. Each slice feels manageable, rational, even fair, until the sum becomes suffocating. The brilliance of this manipulation lies in its subtlety. There's never a single moment of surrender, only a chain of tiny compromises disguised as progress. You look back one day and realize the decision wasn't taken by you, it was taken from you, carved away piece by piece until your freedom disappeared in fragments too small to notice. Incremental financial commitments. Incremental financial commitments are manipulation disguised as progress, a step-by-step erosion of boundaries that turns small investments into heavy chains. It's the psychological trap of getting you to say yes repeatedly, each time to a slightly larger cost, until you're too financially and emotionally entangled to walk away. The manipulator doesn't demand everything at once. They build your compliance one payment, one promise, one just a little more at a time. This technique thrives on the human need for consistency. Once you've invested something, money, time, effort, you feel compelled to justify it. That's the sunk cost fallacy, and manipulators weaponize it expertly. They start with a small fee that feels harmless, then escalate in increments so subtle you barely notice. "You've already come this far," they'll say, or "it'd be a waste to stop now." Each step feels rational, but the path was designed to drain you. You see this in predatory sales tactics, manipulative mentorships, and even toxic relationships. It's the subscription model of emotional exploitation. Each small commitment feels manageable until the total becomes overwhelming. The manipulator doesn't need to pressure you directly. They let your own fear of losing what you've already put in do the work. The brilliance of incremental commitment is that it feels voluntary. You believe you're choosing freely, even as you're being led deeper into dependence. The trap doesn't close with a single decision. It tightens with every small yes, until the moment you realize the price you're paying is no longer just financial. It's freedom itself. Delegation ambush. Delegation ambush is manipulation disguised as teamwork, the sly transfer of responsibility without consent, framed as trust or necessity. It happens when someone hands you a task, a problem, or a burden at the last possible moment, then steps back and calls it collaboration. It's not delegation, it's a setup. You're left scrambling to fix, deliver, or explain something you never agreed to, while they walk away looking responsible, proactive, or even heroic. This tactic thrives in workplaces, families, and friendships where obligation can be exploited. The manipulator times their ambush perfectly, right before a deadline, right before you're about to leave, or right when saying no would make you look selfish or uncooperative. They might say, "I know you're great at this," or "You're the only one I can count on." The flattery disarms you while the trap closes. The brilliance of the delegation ambush lies in plausible deniability. If you protest, they act wounded or confused. I thought you didn't mind helping. If you fail, they stay clean. If you succeed, they take the credit. It's control through burden, a way to claim leadership without labor and authority without accountability. Emotionally, it leaves you drained and resentful, questioning your boundaries and your worth. You start to anticipate the ambushes, saying yes out of fear instead of willingness. Delegation ambushes don't just steal your time, they rewrite the story so you appear unreliable while the manipulator shines. It's not cooperation, it's exploitation wrapped in praise, and it always ends with you carrying the weight of their convenience. False timelines for review. False timelines for review are manipulation disguised as process, a calculated delay designed to keep you waiting, hoping, and compliant. The manipulator creates the illusion of structure and fairness. We just need more time to review this. It's under consideration. We'll revisit it next week, when in truth, the timeline is a mirage meant to stall your expectations and exhaust your patience. You're not waiting for progress. You're being managed into submission. This tactic thrives in hierarchies, workplaces, and bureaucratic systems where control hides behind procedure. By stretching deadlines and promising imminent resolution, the manipulator keeps you emotionally suspended, too uncertain to protest, too invested to walk away. You start rearranging your life around a decision that was never meant to arrive. Every delay feels reasonable at first, every extension necessary, until you realize time itself has become the leash. What makes false timelines so devastating is their psychological precision. The manipulator feeds you just enough reassurance to keep your hope alive, yet never enough closure to set you free. You begin second-guessing your own impatience, telling yourself to be patient, trust the process, or wait your turn. And that's exactly the goal, to make you doubt your right to demand answers. In the end, false timelines don't just waste your time, they rewrite your perception of control. You stop expecting fairness and start accepting limbo as normal. It's not procrastination, it's power disguised as professionalism. The calendar becomes their weapon, and your waiting becomes their quiet victory. Parallel narratives. Parallel narratives are the manipulator's double script, a tactic that allows two conflicting versions of reality to exist side by side, each crafted to serve a different audience. On the surface, they tell one story, calm, reasonable, noble, but behind closed doors, a second story unfolds, darker and self-serving. The power lies not in the lie itself, but in the ability to maintain both truths at once without ever appearing dishonest. The manipulator uses this tactic to control perception. To superiors, they are the loyal victim of misunderstanding. To subordinates, the misunderstood hero. To you, the confidant who sees the real them. Each version of their story is tailored to your emotions, your values, your fears. The result is psychological fragmentation. No one sees the full picture, and anyone who challenges them can be dismissed as confused or biased. Parallel narratives thrive in environments built on trust and image, politics, corporations, relationships. They allow the manipulator to appear innocent while orchestrating chaos, to claim good intentions while committing harm. Each audience hears only the version that flatters their perspective, ensuring that even when the truth leaks out, it sounds inconsistent, too contradictory to be believed. The brilliance of this tactic is how it replaces evidence with emotion. The manipulator doesn't have to prove anything. They just have to make every listener feel like they know the truth. Over time, people stop questioning the contradictions. They start defending them. And when that happens, the manipulator no longer has to lie at all. Their audience will do it for them, keeping both stories alive, perfectly aligned in illusion. Overuse of confidentiality. Overuse of confidentiality is secrecy disguised as professionalism, a manipulative tactic that cloaks control, deceit, or abuse beneath the noble-sounding veil of privacy. It's the calculated use of confidentiality to suppress transparency, isolate individuals, and prevent accountability. The manipulator knows that secrecy breeds power, and by declaring everything sensitive, they turn silence into policy and fear into compliance. At its core, this tactic exploits trust. Confidentiality is supposed to protect people, but when overused, it protects the manipulator instead. They invoke it to stop you from asking questions, to discourage discussion, or to hide misconduct. You can't talk about this, they'll warn, not to safeguard truth, but to bury it. What begins as discretion soon becomes a gag order dressed in virtue. In workplaces, it manifests as non-disclosure culture. Employees threaten into silence about toxic leadership, harassment, or unethical behavior. In relationships, it appears as guilt-driven secrecy. Don't tell anyone what I said, it's just between us. In institutions, it's a shield for corruption, where transparency would mean collapse. The brilliance of this tactic lies in its moral disguise. Overuse of confidentiality makes silence look honorable and truth-telling look disloyal. It isolates the whistleblower, paints openness as betrayal, and convinces you that protecting the manipulator is protecting stability. The danger isn't the secret itself, it's the system of silence it creates. When everything becomes private, nothing is accountable. The manipulator doesn't have to destroy evidence. They just bury it under the illusion of integrity, turning secrecy from a safeguard into a weapon. Cultural exploitation. Cultural exploitation is manipulation draped in admiration, the theft of identity, tradition, or struggle disguised as appreciation. It's when someone or something extracts the beauty, symbolism, or labor of a culture without acknowledging its people, history, or pain. What begins as inspiration becomes erasure. The manipulator takes the richness of another culture's meaning and repackages it for personal gain, profit, prestige, or power, while the original voices are silenced beneath the noise of imitation. This tactic thrives in industries and institutions that value image over integrity. Fashion borrows sacred symbols for trends. Corporations sprinkle cultural phrases into ads to appear inclusive. Influencers wear the garments, speak the words, mimic the rituals, but never bear the weight of the experiences that shape them. It's the transformation of lived heritage into aesthetic currency. The emotional violence of cultural exploitation lies in its invisibility. To outsiders, it looks like flattery or global unity, but to those whose culture is taken, it feels like being robbed of both identity and narrative, watching something deeply personal turned into decoration by those who will never understand its depth. It replaces authenticity with convenience, truth with performance. Cultural exploitation feeds on ignorance and applause. It thrives when people mistake visibility for respect, when pain becomes marketable, when stories are stripped of struggle to make others comfortable. It doesn't seek to share, it seeks to own. And beneath the smiling surface of celebration, what remains is a quiet theft, the taking of meaning from those who earned it through survival. Tone policing to silence. Tone policing to silence is manipulation cloaked in civility, the calculated act of dismissing your message by attacking the way you express it. It's not about truth or fairness, it's about control. When someone says, "Calm down, you're being too emotional," or "I'd listen if you weren't so angry," they're not seeking dialogue, they're seeking dominance. The focus shifts from what you're saying to how you're saying it, suffocating your voice beneath the pretense of decorum. This tactic thrives in environments where appearances matter more than accountability. Offices, relationships, social debates, anywhere emotion is labeled as irrational. The manipulator weaponizes politeness, exploiting your desire to be heard to force you into emotional submission. You start softening your tone, censoring your pain, packaging your truth neatly so it feels acceptable. But the more you temper yourself, the less you are truly heard. Tone policing is especially vicious because it gaslights authenticity. It punishes emotion, the natural language of hurt, anger, and injustice, and rewards detachment, the language of those already in power. It reframes your passion as aggression, your frustration as instability, until you begin doubting the validity of your own feelings. What makes this tactic so quietly brutal is that it masquerades as reasonableness. It sounds mature, balanced, civil, but beneath its calm surface lies the oldest silencing trick in the book. If they can't invalidate your truth, they'll discredit your tone. And when you finally stop speaking to keep the peace, the silence doesn't feel like resolution. It feels like surrender. False benevolence. False benevolence is kindness with a hidden blade, the calculated display of generosity meant not to give, but to gain. It's the manipulator's favorite mask, a performance of goodness crafted to disarm suspicion and earn trust. They appear compassionate, selfless, even noble, but every good deed carries an invisible cost. The motive isn't empathy, it's leverage. This tactic works because we instinctively trust kindness. When someone helps us, we want to believe it's sincere. False benevolence exploits that reflex. The manipulator gives gifts, favors, or opportunities designed to make you dependent or indebted. Their generosity becomes the currency of control. Later, when they demand something in return, it sounds reasonable. After all, they've done so much for you. The emotional impact is devastating. You question your own cynicism, convincing yourself their intentions must be pure. They look like a good person. They act like they care. And when they eventually weaponize their kindness, reminding you what they've sacrificed, you feel guilty for resisting. Their benevolence becomes a leash you thank them for wearing. False benevolence thrives in leaders who preach virtue while exploiting followers, in partners who love through control, in mentors who build loyalty just to cash it in later. It's not kindness, it's theater. The manipulator doesn't want your gratitude, they want your obedience, dressed in the language of appreciation. The cruelty of false benevolence is that it poisons real generosity. After experiencing it, you start to mistrust all kindness, wondering if every helping hand hides a hook. And that's the manipulator's quiet triumph. Not just owning your trust, but corrupting your faith in goodness itself. Legal intimidation. Legal intimidation is the manipulator's weaponized version of justice, a calculated abuse of laws, contracts, and threats of litigation designed not to seek fairness, but to instill fear. It's the transformation of the legal system into a psychological bludgeon, where paperwork replaces violence and the courtroom becomes a specter haunting every decision you make. The goal isn't to win, it's to make you too afraid to fight. This tactic thrives on imbalance. The manipulator invokes lawyers, lawsuits, or official consequences to create a chilling effect. They know that most people dread conflict with authority and can't afford prolonged legal battles. I'll sue you, my lawyer will handle this, or you're violating the contract, become incantations of control, phrases that silence, coerce, or extract compliance before the first document is ever filed. In workplaces, it's used to muzzle whistleblowers through non-disclosure agreements and legal threats. In relationships, it's the abuser promising custody battles or defamation suits to keep the victim quiet. In corporate and political spheres, it's the strategic deployment of cease and desist letters to suppress truth under the guise of legitimacy. What makes legal intimidation so effective is its facade of righteousness. The manipulator wraps their threats in the language of law and order, pretending to defend their rights while trampling yours. It's not about justice, it's about exhaustion. They don't need to prove you wrong, they just need to make resistance feel dangerous. And by the time you realize their power was mostly paper, the fear they planted has already done its job, silencing you before the gavel ever falls. Playing the martyr is emotional manipulation disguised as self-sacrifice, the art of suffering loudly enough to control others through guilt and obligation. The manipulator casts themselves as the tireless giver, the one who does everything for everyone, while quietly ensuring that their pain becomes your burden. Every act of kindness comes with an invisible receipt, every favor a reminder of how much they've endured for you. This tactic thrives on moral superiority. The martyr gains power by appearing selfless, making others feel selfish by comparison. They overextend themselves, then weaponize exhaustion as proof of their virtue. "Don't worry about me," they sigh, knowing full well that you'll rush to comfort them. Refusing their sacrifice feels cruel. Questioning their motives feels heartless. It's not help they want, it's validation bought through pity. Over time, their suffering becomes a currency of control. You find yourself walking on eggshells, overcompensating to avoid being the ungrateful one. They never ask directly. They just sigh louder, work harder, and wait for your guilt to fill the silence. And when you finally assert a boundary, they twist it into betrayal. After everything I've done for you? Playing the martyr is a masterclass in emotional inversion. It turns manipulation into moral high ground, coercion into compassion. The more they give, the smaller you feel. Their sacrifice isn't an offering, it's a leash. And while they wear the crown of the wounded saint, you're left kneeling at the altar of their unending suffering, apologizing for the pain they chose to perform. Manufactured polls, polling bias. Manufactured polls and polling bias are the illusion of democracy, a calculated manipulation of data designed to fabricate public opinion rather than reflect it. They masquerade as the voice of the people, but every question, sample, and statistic is engineered to lead you toward a predetermined conclusion. The numbers look objective, the charts look official, but beneath the polished graphs lies the quiet machinery of persuasion, not truth. This tactic exploits humanity's trust in numbers. People are drawn to data because it feels neutral, factual, immune to emotion. Manipulators weaponize that trust by distorting the foundation of the poll itself, selecting participants who fit the agenda, phrasing questions to elicit certain answers, or omitting options that might disrupt the narrative. The result is a lie that feels scientific and therefore harder to challenge. Once the fake results are released, they spread like wildfire. Headlines echo them. Social media amplifies them. Before long, perception becomes reality. People start to agree with what they believe everyone else already thinks. This is the true goal, not to measure opinion, but to shape it. The brilliance of manufactured polling is that it hides manipulation behind credibility. It doesn't yell. It whispers through percentages and margins of error. It tells you you're in the minority, you're out of touch, the world disagrees with you, and slowly you start to doubt your convictions. Because in a world where lies are wrapped in data, truth doesn't disappear. It's quietly outvoted by design. Over-reliance on secrecy. Over-reliance on secrecy is the manipulator's fortress, a strategy that hides control behind the veil of confidentiality. It's the obsessive need to conceal information, restrict access, and keep people in the dark under the guise of protection or professionalism. The truth is simple. Secrecy isn't about safety, it's about power. When only one person holds the full picture, everyone else becomes dependent on fragments, forced to trust what they cannot verify. This tactic thrives on fear and confusion. The manipulator shrouds their actions in phrases like need to know, classified, or private matter. They convince others that transparency would be reckless or disruptive, when in reality, it would only expose their inconsistencies. Over time, secrecy becomes the default, not a necessity, but a habit of control. It divides people, erases accountability, and breeds quiet obedience. In organizations, it manifests as withheld data, hidden agendas, and selective disclosure that keeps subordinates powerless. In relationships, it looks like private messages, unexplained absences, or emotional walls defended by "you wouldn't understand." The manipulator uses secrecy to manufacture mystique, guilt, and dependence, all while avoiding scrutiny. The brilliance of over-reliance on secrecy is its moral disguise. It pretends to be noble, protecting privacy, preserving peace, maintaining order. But beneath that veneer lies fear, the fear of being seen clearly, because visibility threatens control and sunlight ruins illusion. The damage it leaves behind is silent but deep. It erodes trust, turning curiosity into suspicion and loyalty into blindness. And by the time the truth surfaces, the manipulator has already rewritten it, shielded by the very shadows they taught everyone else to respect. Information hoarding. Information hoarding is control through silence, the deliberate withholding, filtering, or monopolizing of knowledge to maintain power over others. It's the quiet art of keeping people dependent, uncertain, and off balance by deciding what they get to know, when they get to know it, and how much of the truth they're allowed to see. The manipulator doesn't need to lie. They just need to keep you in the dark long enough for confusion to look like incompetence. This tactic thrives on asymmetry. Knowledge is power, and by hoarding it, the manipulator becomes the gatekeeper of clarity. In workplaces, they forget to share key details until it's too late, making others seem unprepared. In relationships, they reveal only fragments of the truth, forcing you to guess, react, and chase answers. In politics and organizations, it's the selective release of data, enough to appear transparent, but never enough to expose the full picture. Information hoarding breeds dependency. When someone controls the flow of truth, you start to rely on them for direction, approval, or interpretation. They position themselves as the only source of certainty, slowly eroding your confidence in your own understanding. The cruelty of this manipulation lies in its invisibility. It doesn't scream or threaten, it withholds. It leaves you questioning your memory, your worth, your grasp of reality. And over time, you stop asking, because every question reminds you of what you don't know. That's when the manipulator wins, when silence itself becomes their strongest form of speech. Shame tactics. Shame tactics are the emotional equivalent of a chokehold, a manipulative weapon that turns your sense of morality against you. They operate by making you feel small, unworthy, or guilty for not meeting someone else's expectations. At their core, shame tactics exploit the deepest human need, the need to feel accepted. When that acceptance is threatened, people will bend, silence themselves, even betray their own truth, just to escape the unbearable heat of humiliation. Manipulators use shame like a scalpel. They know how to cut precisely where your self-worth is most fragile. You're being selfish. I thought you were better than this. Everyone's disappointed in you. These phrases aren't arguments, they're emotional traps. Each word is designed to pierce your identity and make you question your goodness. Once the guilt takes root, obedience follows quietly. The brilliance of shame tactics is how they disguise control as moral correction. The manipulator positions themselves as the virtuous one, the parent, the mentor, the partner who's just trying to help. But behind the moral tone is a hunger for dominance. They don't want your understanding, they want your submission. Shame reshapes memory. You start to recall only your flaws, forgetting every moment of strength or integrity. It's a slow corrosion of the self, one that replaces confidence with self-surveillance. And the cruelest part? The more you internalize it, the less the manipulator has to say. You begin to police yourself, carrying their voice inside your head, mistaking your own guilt for their truth. Triangulation. Triangulation is a psychological war game, a method of control that thrives on chaos, comparison, and competition. At its heart, it's about introducing a third party into a two-person dynamic to destabilize trust and manipulate perception. The manipulator positions themselves at the center, pulling strings from behind the curtain, while the others become pawns in a silent battle for approval, validation, or truth. It begins subtly. You hear what someone supposedly said about you. You're told how much more understanding another person is. The manipulator acts as a messenger, claiming neutrality while quietly stoking tension. Suddenly, you find yourself questioning who's honest, who's loyal, and whether you're the problem. That confusion is the goal, because when people are divided, they're easier to control. Triangulation feeds on insecurity. It creates invisible hierarchies, forcing you to compete for the manipulator's attention or approval. In romantic relationships, it might be an ex mentioned just enough to spark jealousy. In workplaces, it's the boss comparing employees to keep them compliant. In friendships, it's gossip disguised as concern. Every triangle ends the same way. Someone wins, someone loses, and the manipulator stays in power. The true cruelty of triangulation lies in its emotional dissonance. It poisons connection by turning empathy into suspicion. You start fighting for validation from the very person who caused your doubt. The manipulator doesn't just divide people, they redefine what loyalty looks like. And as long as the triangle stands, no one feels safe enough to question who built it. Loaded questions. Loaded questions are psychological traps disguised as curiosity, carefully constructed sentences that corner you no matter how you answer. They are designed not to seek truth, but to manipulate perception, forcing you into a position of guilt, defense, or concession before you even speak. A loaded question carries a hidden accusation or assumption buried inside it, making neutrality impossible. The power of this tactic lies in how it hijacks logic and emotion at once. When someone asks, "Why are you so angry?" or "When did you stop caring about this?" the question isn't innocent. It's a weapon wrapped in civility. If you defend yourself, you validate the premise. If you deny it, you sound evasive. Either way, the manipulator wins, because the frame of truth now belongs to them. Loaded questions thrive on shame and pressure. They are often used in arguments, interrogations, or toxic relationships to twist accountability. The manipulator doesn't need to raise their voice. They just tilt the stage until you're forced to stumble. Every answer becomes an admission, every silence a confession. What makes this tactic so cruel is how it feels like a normal conversation. You feel compelled to explain yourself, to clarify, to reason, but every word you offer tightens the noose. The loaded question creates an illusion of dialogue while stripping away your freedom to choose the terms of truth. It turns communication into entrapment, making you feel defensive, small, and wrong, even when you've done nothing at all. False dichotomy. False dichotomy is the art of trapping thought itself, a manipulative illusion that forces you to choose between two extremes, as if no other path exists. It's the favorite tool of politicians, abusers, and persuaders who want control without the burden of open debate. By presenting only two options, one painted as reckless and the other as righteous, they shrink the entire spectrum of possibility into a single, rigged choice. This tactic works because the human brain craves simplicity. We fear uncertainty, so when someone confidently declares, "You're either with us or against us," we feel cornered into picking a side. The manipulator knows that once you're inside their frame, you stop questioning the frame itself. They turn complexity into loyalty tests, forcing you to defend yourself just for refusing their binary. False dichotomies thrive in emotional moments, arguments, politics, love. If you loved me, you'd do this. If you cared, you wouldn't question me. Each statement carries the hidden poison of guilt, designed to make you comply without thinking. The gray area, the space where truth often lives, is erased, leaving only absolutes that serve the manipulator's agenda. It's a mental chokehold disguised as clarity. By presenting false opposites, they disguise manipulation as logic, making you feel foolish or heartless for even considering nuance. The more emotional the situation, the stronger the effect. And once you accept their framing, they don't have to win the argument. You've already surrendered your freedom to think beyond their limits. Gaslighting is psychological warfare disguised as concern, a deliberate twisting of your perception until you no longer trust your own reality. It begins quietly, with small denials, subtle contradictions, and gentle corrections that make you question your memory. That never happened. You're overreacting. You always misunderstand me. These phrases sound harmless, but each one chips away at your certainty. Over time, you stop arguing. You start doubting. You begin to wonder if the problem really is you. The brilliance of gaslighting lies in its invisibility. It doesn't force you. It makes you surrender willingly by eroding the foundation of your mind. Manipulators use this tactic to gain total psychological control, because a person who doubts their own perception becomes dependent on someone else's version of truth. The gaslighter becomes the arbiter of reality, the only one who sees things clearly. It often starts with affection and ends in isolation. At first, they seem patient, helping you understand what really happened. But soon, every memory is rewritten, every feeling dismissed, every reaction weaponized against you. The goal isn't to win an argument, it's to rewrite your internal compass until you no longer know which way is north. Gaslighting is emotional suffocation. It turns your mind into a maze where every path leads back to their voice. The more you try to defend yourself, the deeper you fall into confusion. It's not that you lose your grip on reality, it's that someone else keeps moving it piece by piece until you forget what solid ground ever felt like. Moving goalposts. Moving the goalposts is a psychological endurance test disguised as fairness. It's a tactic where the rules, expectations, or standards keep shifting, just enough to make you chase validation that never comes. The manipulator sets a target, watches you strive toward it, then quietly moves it further away the moment you get close. It's not about progress, it's about control. The finish line doesn't exist. It's a mirage built to keep you running. This technique thrives on hope. You believe that if you just work a little harder, prove yourself one more time, say the right thing, you'll finally earn approval, peace, or closure. But every time you meet the demand, the criteria change. What was once good enough suddenly isn't. The manipulator acts disappointed but calm, making you feel like the failure is yours. You start doubting your worth, questioning whether you've misunderstood the expectations. In relationships, moving goalposts keeps partners trapped in cycles of emotional exhaustion, forever trying to meet standards that shift like smoke. In workplaces, it keeps employees obedient, chasing promotions or praise that never materialize. The genius of this tactic is how it disguises itself as motivation while slowly eroding your confidence. What makes it so destructive is its subtle cruelty. You're conditioned to equate effort with love, success with worth, compliance with safety, and when those meanings keep changing, your sense of stability collapses. The manipulator doesn't need to punish you. They just keep changing the rules until you punish yourself. Straw man misrepresentation. Straw man misrepresentation is the art of distortion, a manipulative technique that twists your words into a weaker, uglier version of themselves so they can be easily attacked. It's not an argument, it's a performance of righteousness built on deliberate misunderstanding. The manipulator doesn't fight your actual idea. They build a fragile imitation of it, a straw man, and then tear it down to make themselves look superior or justified. This tactic thrives in conflict and debate, where control of the narrative means control of perception. You might say something nuanced, and they'll reframe it as extreme. You express disagreement, and they'll accuse you of hostility. They reshape your intent, then punish you for it. It's intellectual gaslighting, and it leaves you feeling frustrated, misheard, and desperate to clarify what you really meant. But every clarification becomes new material for distortion. The straw man is seductive because it feels like truth to outsiders. It's simple, emotional, and easy to digest. The manipulator counts on the crowd's short attention span and their hunger for drama. By simplifying your argument into absurdity, they create an illusion of moral or intellectual victory without ever engaging in honesty. The cruelty of this technique lies in its falseness, cloaked as reason. It punishes sincerity and rewards deceit. When someone repeatedly misrepresents you, they aren't misunderstanding, they're rewriting reality to win. The goal isn't to prove you wrong, it's to make sure your truth never has the chance to be heard. Rapid-fire questioning. Rapid-fire questioning is a psychological ambush, a barrage of inquiries delivered with such relentless speed and intensity that your mind scrambles to keep up. It's not about curiosity, it's about control. The manipulator's goal is to overwhelm your cognitive defenses, to keep you reacting instead of reflecting. In the chaos of trying to answer everything at once, you start revealing more than you intended, agreeing to things you don't fully understand, or contradicting yourself under pressure. This tactic thrives on disorientation. When someone fires questions faster than you can think, your brain shifts into survival mode. Logic takes a back seat as you rush to appease, explain, or defend. You start feeling cornered, each pause stretched into guilt, each hesitation treated like proof of wrongdoing. The manipulator feeds on this discomfort, twisting your words, exploiting confusion, and framing your exhaustion as evidence that they're right. You'll see it in interrogations, toxic relationships, and corporate power plays. It's the boss who peppers you with questions until you break, the partner who demands explanations faster than you can breathe, the debater who mistakes aggression for intellect. The rhythm is the weapon. It gives no room for silence, no time to gather strength. Rapid-fire questioning is designed to make you lose your footing. It creates a false sense of urgency that makes compliance feel like relief. And by the time the storm of words subsides, you realize you've been stripped of your clarity, your confidence, and your control, all without a single raised voice. Compassion bait. Compassion bait is the emotional snare of manipulation, a calculated performance of vulnerability designed to disarm your instincts and hook your empathy. It preys on the most human of reflexes, the desire to help someone in pain. The manipulator presents themselves as broken, misunderstood, or abandoned, weaving a story so drenched in sorrow that saying no feels cruel. It's not honesty, it's strategy. At first, it feels real. The tears, the trembling voice, the confession of hurt, all of it pulls at your protective instincts. You lean in, you comfort, you soften, and in that moment, your boundaries dissolve. That's when the manipulation begins. Compassion bait works because it makes you equate kindness with compliance. You stop thinking critically because the idea of causing more pain becomes unbearable. The manipulator thrives in that imbalance. They weaponize sympathy to gain forgiveness, attention, or control. When caught lying, they cry. When confronted, they collapse. When you try to leave, they crumble into desperation. You mistake emotional chaos for sincerity, unaware that your empathy has been turned into a leash. Compassion bait doesn't just steal your energy, it rewires your guilt. You start believing that pulling away means abandoning someone fragile, but what you're really abandoning is the illusion of their helplessness. The tragedy is that by saving them, you're losing yourself, one act of misplaced mercy at a time. And the cruelest part, they never wanted healing. They wanted power, wrapped in the shape of your compassion. Foot in the door. The foot in the door technique is manipulation dressed as harmless agreement, a slow erosion of boundaries that begins with a small, innocent yes. At its core, it's the art of gaining compliance through gradual escalation. The manipulator starts with a minor request, something so reasonable it feels petty to refuse. But that first yes isn't the goal, it's the doorway. Once you've opened it, they step through and start asking for more. This tactic preys on consistency, the human desire to appear reliable and aligned with our previous choices. Once you've agreed to something small, saying no to a slightly bigger favor feels like hypocrisy. Each step blurs the line between cooperation and exploitation. You tell yourself you're just being helpful, reasonable, kind, but slowly the requests grow heavier, the expectations higher, until your compliance becomes automatic. It's a technique used by salespeople, cult recruiters, manipulative partners, and even institutions. They all start with something small. Can you fill out this quick survey? Can you do me one small favor? Can you just stay a little longer? And before you realize it, you're signing contracts, sacrificing sleep, or compromising values you swore you'd never bend. The danger of the foot in the door isn't in the first request. It's in the pattern it creates. Each concession rewires your perception of what's normal, teaching you to give more just to feel consistent, to avoid guilt, to keep the peace. By the time you recognize the manipulation, your own compliance has built the cage, and all the manipulator had to do was knock once and wait for you to open. Door in the face. The door in the face technique is manipulation disguised as magnanimity, a psychological trick that plays with rejection to make compliance feel like relief. It begins with an outrageous request, something so excessive that your instinct is to refuse. But that's exactly what the manipulator wants. Once you say no, they pivot to a much smaller, reasonable request. Compared to the first, it feels fair, even generous, and you find yourself agreeing to something you never planned to accept. The brilliance of this tactic lies in contrast. Your mind isn't evaluating the second request objectively. It's measuring it against the first. The manipulator controls your frame of reference, making the smaller favor feel like a compromise rather than a concession. You walk away believing you've won balance, when in truth you've been guided there from the start. This technique thrives in negotiations, sales, and relationships where guilt and perception matter. A boss demands a weekend of overtime, then settles for one extra day. A friend asks for a large loan, then requests a smaller amount, making you feel compassionate for saying yes. Even parents and children use it instinctively, escalating demands only to retreat strategically into what they wanted all along. The emotional power of door in the face comes from the illusion of fairness. You feel respected because the other person compromised, but behind that politeness is calculation. They engineered your refusal so your agreement would feel like redemption. It's not about persuasion, it's about choreography, and by the time you step back through that smaller door, you don't realize it was the only one they ever wanted you to open. Past commitment leverage. Past commitment leverage is the silent exploitation of your own integrity, the manipulator's art of turning your history of loyalty, promises, or sacrifices into emotional currency they can spend at will. It's the whispered reminder of everything you've already done for them, twisted into a moral chain that keeps you obedient. After all I've done for you, they say, and suddenly the air thickens with guilt. You feel cornered, indebted, trapped by the ghost of your own devotion. This tactic weaponizes your sense of consistency. Humans crave to be seen as reliable, honorable, true to their word. Manipulators know this. They'll remind you of favors, commitments, and memories you once shared, not to appreciate them, but to trap you inside them. Every time you try to step back, they resurrect the past like a ledger. You can't quit now. You owe me. It often starts subtly, a gentle nudge that plays on gratitude or obligation. But over time, it becomes emotional blackmail. They bind you to old versions of yourself, using your past kindness as a leash. You stay longer in toxic situations, agree to unfair demands, or silence your discomfort because walking away feels like betrayal. The cruelty of past commitment leverage lies in its disguise. It masquerades as loyalty, responsibility, even love. But what it really demands is surrender. the erasure of your present freedom in the name of your past choices. And when you finally wake up, you realize the debt was never real. It was only your goodness they were counting on. Hidden terms. Hidden terms are the fine print of manipulation, the quiet traps buried beneath words that sound safe. They masquerade as fairness, as mutual understanding, as just a simple agreement, while concealing conditions that bind you long after you've said yes. It's the unspoken costs, the unmentioned clause, the promise that means something entirely different once you're already committed. Manipulators use hidden terms because open control invites resistance. Subtle control, however, slips in unnoticed. They'll frame an offer as generous, but leave out what you'll owe later. They'll ask for a small favor, then act as though you agreed to everything that follows. The power of this tactic lies in timing. You only discover the truth when it's too late to walk away. It's the friend who says, "Can you help me just this once?" but expects your ongoing loyalty. The employer who promises flexibility but demands endless availability. The partner who says, "I just need understanding," but means obedience. Each phrase hides an invisible contract, and your silence becomes the signature. Hidden terms thrive in ambiguity. They exploit trust, using warmth and reassurance as camouflage. You don't see the strings until you're tangled in them. By then, the manipulator pretends the deal was always clear, that you're the one breaking promises. The danger isn't only in what's concealed, but in how it makes you doubt yourself. You replay conversations, searching for the clause you missed, but you didn't miss it. They never said it. That's the beauty of the trap. You can't defend yourself against what was never spoken, only implied. Anchoring with extremes. Anchoring with extremes is a manipulation of perception, a psychological trick that warps your sense of fairness by flooding your mind with contrast. It works by presenting an exaggerated option first, something so extreme, so unreasonable, that everything that follows seems moderate by comparison. The manipulator doesn't want you to choose the first offer. They just want it to redefine your baseline. Our brains crave reference points. When faced with uncertainty, we instinctively compare new information to whatever we heard first. That's the anchor. It locks in your perception, shaping what feels acceptable even when logic says otherwise. A negotiator starts with an outrageous demand, so their compromise feels generous. A salesperson quotes a sky-high price, so the discount feels irresistible. A partner sets an impossible standard, so their lesser demands feel reasonable. The genius of this tactic is that it doesn't force you, it guides you, invisibly. By manipulating your frame of reference, the manipulator gains control over your sense of proportion. You start to believe you're making an independent decision, when in truth, your mind is orbiting around the anchor they planted. Anchoring with extremes thrives in situations where emotion clouds judgment, urgency, pressure, desire. It makes you chase relief instead of fairness, gratitude instead of logic. You agree, not because you're convinced, but because compared to the impossible, the manipulator's real demand feels merciful. It's not persuasion, it's distortion. And the cruelest part is that once the anchor is set, even awareness of the trick doesn't fully free you, because your reality has already been tilted in their favor. Weasel words. Weasel words are linguistic smoke, phrases carefully crafted to sound truthful while saying almost nothing at all. They slither through conversations, contracts, and speeches, wrapping lies in the illusion of credibility. These words are designed to mislead without ever technically being false, giving manipulators a shield of deniability while planting emotional certainty in the listener's mind. You've heard them before. Experts say, some people believe, it's been suggested, results may vary. They sound authoritative, but they hide behind vagueness. There are no names, no data, no accountability, just a fog of implication. Weasel words work because they exploit trust and cognitive laziness. The brain fills in the blanks, assuming specifics where none exist, and suddenly the empty phrase feels like fact. This tactic is a favorite in politics, advertising, and corporate language. A company doesn't lie, it positions. A politician doesn't promise, they intend. The words are chosen not for clarity, but for confusion that sounds intelligent. It's linguistic hypnosis, designed to let deception pass unnoticed. Emotionally, weasel words soothe and seduce. They sound safe, balanced, sophisticated, avoiding hard truths while keeping you emotionally invested. You can't quite argue with them because they never commit to anything solid. And that's their genius. Plausible uncertainty masquerading as insight. The danger isn't just in what's said, but in what's not said. Weasel words drain meaning from language, leaving only suggestion. They blur the boundary between truth and manipulation, turning conversation into camouflage. And by the time you realize the words were hollow, the message has already done its work. Absolutist language. Absolutist language is the weapon of extremes, the manipulator's way of erasing nuance and cornering you inside a world of all or nothing thinking. It's built from words like always, never, everyone, no one, everything, nothing. At first, it sounds powerful, even convincing, but beneath its certainty lies a trap. Absolutist speech doesn't seek truth, it seeks control. It forces emotion to take the place of logic, pressuring you to surrender subtlety for submission. When someone says, "You never listen," or "You always mess things up," they're not describing reality, they're rewriting it. These sweeping claims overwhelm the mind because they leave no room to reason or defend. You find yourself chasing exceptions, trying to prove your worth against impossible absolutes. And that's exactly the point. The manipulator's goal isn't clarity, it's dominance. Absolutist language thrives in emotional spaces, arguments, guilt trips, power struggles, where precision would weaken the manipulator's hold. It creates shame, confusion, and helplessness. It paints you as entirely wrong or entirely flawed. So the only way to escape the discomfort is to comply. Over time, this language seeps into your self-talk. You start thinking in absolutes about yourself. I always fail. No one cares. The manipulation no longer needs an external voice. You've internalized it. The danger of absolutist language lies in its simplicity. It sounds definitive, righteous, certain, but beneath the boldness is fear. Fear of being questioned, of admitting complexity, of losing control. It's not the truth they want, it's your silence dressed as agreement. Jargon obfuscation. Jargon obfuscation is the art of hiding control behind complexity, a linguistic smokescreen designed to confuse, overwhelm, and silence questioning. It thrives in the illusion of intelligence. The manipulator uses technical language, abstract phrasing, or industry buzzwords not to clarify, but to dominate the conversation. They speak in a way that makes you feel small, unqualified, or foolish for asking what something really means. The power of jargon lies in its ability to create distance. The more complex the language, the more authority it seems to carry. Manipulators know this. They weaponize it to make others dependent on their expertise, creating a dynamic where understanding becomes a privilege they control. The listener, desperate not to appear ignorant, nods along, agreeing to terms, ideas, or contracts they barely comprehend. You see it in corporate meetings where executives speak in empty buzzwords, in political speeches filled with euphemisms, in relationships where one partner uses intellectual superiority to shut down emotional truth. The goal is always the same: confuse the target until compliance feels like the only safe response. Jargon obfuscation doesn't just distort meaning, it rewrites reality. It replaces plain truth with polished nonsense, trading transparency for control. When someone asks a direct question and gets a cloud of words in return, that's not communication, it's concealment. The tragedy is that it works because we're conditioned to equate complexity with credibility. The manipulator hides in that assumption, building walls of words so tall that you stop trying to see over them. And when silence finally replaces your confusion, they win, not by logic, but by exhaustion. Euphemism, minimization. Minimization is linguistic manipulation at its most insidious, a deliberate softening of harsh truths to dull emotional impact and disguise wrongdoing. It's the art of coating poison with honey, of using gentle words to mask cruelty, corruption, or abuse. The manipulator knows that language shapes perception, and by changing the words, they can change what people feel. They don't lie outright. They reframe reality until it no longer feels urgent or wrong. Governments use it when they call civilian deaths collateral damage. Corporations use it when mass layoffs become restructuring. Abusers use it when emotional torment becomes a misunderstanding. Each phrase strips away the moral weight of what's being done, replacing outrage with uneasy acceptance. The horror doesn't disappear, it's simply renamed. This technique works because our minds react less to facts and more to framing. The right word can turn cruelty into necessity and manipulation into care. By softening the language, the manipulator makes you second-guess your instincts. It feels too extreme to call it abuse, too dramatic to call it deceit, so you minimize it too, just like they want. Euphemism, minimization, is powerful because it infects thought itself. Once the softened words take root, they reshape how you remember, judge, and forgive. Over time, you start repeating their phrases, defending their actions, even adopting their language as your own. And that's the quiet victory of this technique. It doesn't silence you by force. It teaches you to rewrite the truth in whispers that no longer sound like pain. Intimidating proximity. Intimidating proximity is the manipulation of space, the deliberate invasion of your personal boundaries to assert dominance, control, or fear. It's a silent form of psychological aggression, one that doesn't need a raised voice or a single threat to send the body into alarm. When someone stands too close, leans in without invitation, or hovers just within your comfort zone, it activates your primal instinct for danger. You feel trapped, exposed, and small, all while they appear calm and composed. This tactic preys on the body's automatic reactions. Your pulse quickens, your breath shortens, your muscles tighten. It's not just physical discomfort, it's psychological submission. By violating the invisible buffer that protects your sense of safety, the manipulator sends a message. I control the space. I control you. In workplaces, this shows up when a superior leans over your desk, lowering their voice to a near whisper. In relationships, it's the partner who blocks a doorway during arguments or steps closer every time you try to retreat. Even in negotiations, it's the individual who shortens the distance until you unconsciously concede just to relieve the pressure. The brilliance and cruelty of intimidating proximity is that it can be denied. I was just standing here. You're overreacting. The violation is invisible to outsiders, but deeply felt by the target. Its power disguised as presence, control masked as closeness. The manipulator doesn't need to touch you, they just need to erase the air between you until your fear does the rest. Microaggressions. Microaggressions are the art of wounding without leaving visible scars. Tiny verbal, behavioral, or tonal slights that chip away at your sense of worth while allowing the perpetrator to claim innocence. They are the quiet assassins of confidence, delivered through jokes that aren't funny, compliments that sting, or casual remarks that carry venom just below the surface. Each one feels small in isolation, but over time they form a mosaic of humiliation that only the target can truly see. What makes microaggressions so insidious is their deniability. The manipulator hides behind tone and context. You're too sensitive. I was only joking. Don't make it a big deal. The cruelty lies in the gaslighting that follows. You begin to question your perception wondering if you imagine the disrespect. The emotional exhaustion comes not just from the attack itself, but from constantly defending your right to feel hurt. Microaggressions often appear in environments obsessed with politeness and hierarchy. Workplaces, families, social circles, where open hostility would be condemned, but subtle contempt can thrive. A lingering smirk, an exaggerated sigh, a pointed, accidental mispronunciation, each one sends a message. You don't quite belong here. The genius of this tactic is its stealth. It destroys peace of mind one cut at a time, slowly eroding your self-esteem while the aggressor stands untouched, shielded by plausible deniability. It's a war fought in whispers and half smiles, where the battlefield is your sanity, and every small insult asks the same silent question. Will you speak up and risk being labeled the problem, or stay quiet and let it continue? Controlled environment. A controlled environment is the manipulator's stage, the space they construct to script every variable, every emotion, every possible outcome in their favor. It's not always a physical room. Sometimes it's a situation, a workplace, a relationship dynamic, any setting where they can control the flow of information, the tone of conversation, and the psychological atmosphere. The goal is simple. Isolate your perspective until their version of reality feels like the only one that exists. In a controlled environment, everything is intentional. The lighting, the timing, who's present, what's said, all of it engineered to keep you off balance and compliant. Manipulators know that control isn't just about what you hear, it's about what you don't hear. They restrict access to outside opinions, limit your time to think, and surround you with subtle reinforcements of their authority. You begin to feel that stepping out of their space, literally or emotionally, means losing safety. This tactic thrives in silence and confinement. In workplaces, it looks like closed-door meetings and selective inclusion. In relationships, it's the partner who isolates you from friends for your own good. In cults and institutions, it's the physical separation that ensures dependence. Once the manipulator controls the environment, they control your perception. The most chilling part is how normal it can feel. The walls don't appear overnight, they close in slowly. Bit by bit, you stop speaking freely, stop reaching out, stop trusting your own senses. And by the time you notice how small the world has become, you've already mistaken captivity for comfort. Threats to record. Threats to record are the manipulator's way of turning technology into terror, a modern weapon of control disguised as accountability. It begins with a single chilling phrase, "I'll record this." In that moment, the entire balance of power shifts. Every word, every breath, every silence suddenly feels like evidence waiting to be twisted. You're no longer in a conversation, you're under surveillance. At its core, this tactic exploits fear. The manipulator doesn't need to actually record you. The threat alone is enough to change your behavior. It taps into the primal dread of exposure, the idea that your mistakes, tone, or private moments could be replayed, edited, and used against you. It forces self-censorship, making you weigh every syllable while they sit comfortably in control. This isn't about fairness or truth. It's about dominance. The manipulator frames themselves as the responsible one, the protector of transparency, while using the threat to silence, intimidate, or extract compliance. If you have nothing to hide, you shouldn't worry, they'll say, weaponizing morality itself. But what they seek isn't honesty, it's obedience. In relationships, this threat breeds paranoia and submission. In workplaces, it creates fear of retaliation. In public life, it destroys trust, turning every disagreement into a potential scandal. The true cruelty lies in its psychological aftershock. You start replaying every conversation in your head, haunted by what could be used against you. Threats to record don't preserve truth, they distort it. They're not about transparency, they're about control through the promise of exposure, a silent blackmail that turns your voice into a liability. Information overload. Information overload is a manipulator's storm of confusion, a flood of data, words, and details designed not to inform, but to exhaust. It's the strategic drowning of your focus beneath a torrent of noise so dense that clarity becomes impossible. When faced with too much information, the human mind shuts down its critical filters. Overwhelmed and desperate for relief, you begin to accept what's easiest to believe instead of what's true. This tactic thrives in environments where control hides behind complexity. Bureaucrats bury deception in endless paperwork. Corporations release 50-page terms and conditions, and manipulators in conversations speak so fast, so long, or so densely that you can't catch your footing. You nod, not because you agree, but because your brain can't process another word. That's the moment they win. Information overload doesn't just confuse, it fatigues. It wears down your mental stamina until compliance feels like mercy. The manipulator's goal isn't to convince you with reason, but to make resistance too tiring to sustain. By the time you realize what's happened, your attention has been hijacked, your focus scattered, and your willpower drained. This is how truth gets buried, not by lies, but by excess. Too many facts, too many angles, too many options. It creates the illusion of transparency while concealing deception in plain sight. You walk away feeling ignorant, guilty for not understanding, when in reality, you were never meant to. Information overload doesn't educate. It overwhelms, numbs, and quietly steals your ability to think.